Yeah, it's a particularly good day for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris skipped the Al Smith dinner. The last person to do that was Mondale. If you guys know anything about history, wasn't that long ago, but he did not do very well. He lost he lost everything. He won one state. He won Minnesota. Congratulations. Kamala Harris did the same thing. She got booed. She sent a pre-recorded video of her doing this bizarre skit with a former SNL character from the 90s. It's just very weird. And so fine, I guess Donald Trump came out and he said she's a loser. That's what he called her for ditching the event. Now we've got, this is crazy, Nate Silver is predicting that Trump has the edge to win. Not that he will win, but he's at the edge. 538 has now given Donald Trump the edge to win. He's up 20 points in Poly Market, 16 plus in the betting averages. Even Predict It, which was leaning heavily for Kamala, has shifted. And there's a report that some very wealthy individuals, whales they call them in gambling, have placed millions, up to $30 million on Donald Trump to win. So he's certainly loving this. And now Bill Maher is going after Kamala's husband over all of the weird allegations where he struck a woman and other things like that. So Trump's enjoying it. Here's the best part, though. On The View, they're like, I actually think it's a really good thing that Kamala Harris skipped the Al Smith dinner. You know, it was very smart of her. Yep. No matter what she does, they say it's good. So we're going to talk all about that. Before we do, my friends, head over to preservegold.com/Tim Financial experts are urging Americans to prepare now. With inflation soaring, a border crisis affecting cities and small towns, and warnings of a recession, my friends, we are living in insane, unpredictable times. To protect your retirement accounts and 401ks, you should strongly consider physical gold and silver right now. Did you guys see that silver is at like a record? Right now, Preserve Gold has an exclusive offer for my viewers where you'll get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase, as well as a free guide. Text TIM to 50505 to learn more, or visit preservegold.com/TimPool. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews, millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. And as I was just saying, it was kind of crazy. I just heard today that silver is at like a decade high or something like this. People are getting worried with the election coming up. Also, head over to castbrew.com, buy Cast Brew coffee. Everybody loves it. We got Ian's Graphene Dream and Alex Stein's Primetime Grind, 2 times caffeine. Drink responsibly, people. Alex is, you don't want to be too much like him, so don't drink too much, but we recommend you buy it anyway. And become a member at timcast.com to support our work directly. And join our members-only Discord and shows. We do those Monday through Thursday. Smash the like button, subscribe, share the show with everyone you know. Leave us a good review if you're listening on Apple or any other podcast platform. We really do appreciate it. Joining us tonight to talk about this and everything else, we got 2 great guests. Who wants to go first?
Howdy, I'm Joshua Lisec. I'm credibly accused of ghostwriting more than 90 books. I'm currently a known co-author and sometime hypnotist, here to talk about the new book, Bulletproof, the first and only book about the assassination attempts on Donald J. Trump.
If you look closely, you may notice some slight subtextual clues that I have left scattered throughout the studio, much like a game of Clue, that give you the indication that I might have a new book coming out. Just very small clues.
What's it called?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you actually what it's called. I'm not going to tell you the title, Bulletproof. But for anyone who's listening, boy, you guys are just really missing out on this.
I was about to say, the audio side people are going, what's the name of the book? Seamus is here.
Seamus Coughlin, Freedom Tunes. We just released a cartoon today and one yesterday and one the day before. So that's 3 animated cartoons in 1 week. I'm pretty happy with all of them, and people seem to be raving over the one we just released. We were watching it earlier. We might watch it on air. But
we are, yeah.
Amazing. So go over to Freedom Tunes right now. Subscribe. If you want to be ahead of the curve, you can watch it there first. We're 20,000 subs away from 1 million.
Don't let him get over 1 million, folks. If you were already subscribed, unsubscribe right now from Freedom Tunes. Don't listen him get off. Christ is king. Christ is king.
That's true.
Christ is king.
Don't try to appropriate that. Turn it against my YouTube.
What do you mean appropriate? I'm not
turning it against my YouTube channel.
I'm not appropriating it. I'm Catholic. I've been Catholic my entire life.
You're using it to besmirch the good name of my YouTube channel.
King. I'm just saying, folks.
I agree. Christ is king.
He will work harder. Look. He is just under 1 million at Freedom Tunes. He will work as hard as a Protestant if you don't let him get to 1 million. It is in the best interests of the nation and, dare I say, the world and perhaps all of our immortal souls if we keep Seamus under 1 million.
There are Protestants on the payroll working really hard right now.
And they will work harder. I mean, this guy
What is
puts
this
out
turning
like
into, Northern
he puts
Ireland?
out like a 1 minute. He puts out a 1 minute. Well, no, it's not turning into Northern Ireland.
It's
because
so funny
because I think you mean excuse me. I think you mean Western England.
This is okay. Wow. I don't know what I'm more insulted by here. So if you support, I just want to be clear. If you support, quote unquote, Northern Ireland, Western England, as
Western
Jack calls it,
England.
then sure, you can take his perspective on my YouTube channel. If you believe in the sovereignty of the Irish people, go over to Freedom Tunes and subscribe. And I just also want to mention, Jack is like, oh, it's been a day since his last upload, and it's only a minute long, and every animator in the world hearing that is like, what? He did a minute in a day?
What do you say
That's
about a people who
insane.
can't even control their own island?
Anyway,
how good of a job is
saying.
England doing controlling the flow of migrants into their country right now?
Yeah.
Are you British, Jack?
Last time,
Yeah, why are you trashing Ireland? Are
I'm-
you British?
Last time I was in.
By the way, what's
last time I
happening
was
to
in-
England's a tragedy.
Last time I was in Dublin, I don't even think I met one Irish person.
So
Indian?
Shane's here.
I'm about to crack open the holy water bottle and sprinkle it on these guys.
Literally,
Please
I
do.
support Freedom Tunes.
Please do.
And I support Bulletproof.
Please do.
It's very important. There's pillars of Bulletproof behind on either side of Jack for those listening.
Which, by the way, Joshua is like 100% Irish, the co-author here. So he is like,
I'm Irish too. There's a lot of Irishmen.
yeah,
here.
he's like,
All right.
I will just kill you. Like,
I started going to a Catholic church because it is Irish Catholic.
I'm like, for the record, we love Ireland. We love Ireland.
This one's for the Irish.
It's a pretty good place, you know. It's
all right.
It's a good place. Shall we talk about news?
Oh, is
I
there
mean,
news
if,
there?
if
Is
you,
there any-
I guess
is
if
there
you
any
want to
news?
do that, Tim, we can talk about
What
it.
is this, a news show, Tim?
It kind of is. All right, here we go. We got this from the New York Post. And I could have chosen actually, you know what? Let me read this one. Kamala Harris taps ex-SNL star for head-scratching Al Smith dinner skit that left audience puzzled and silent. I like this one. From the Daily Mail, Kamala Harris is torched for cringeworthy and historically bad pre-recorded Al Smith dinner video. Because I think you all listening deserve this, I'm playing it for you now.
Oh, no, not again. Please.
And distinguished guests, the Al Smith dinner provides a rare opportunity to set aside partisanship.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, what's going on? Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Gallagher. Mary Catherine Gallagher. It's so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Mary Catherine. Right now I'm trying to record my speech for tonight's dinner.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to say that I'm Catholic, and tonight is one of the biggest dinners next to the Last Supper.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I simmer them like that. But that's gross.
So tell me something. I'm giving a speech. Do you have some thoughts about what I might say tonight?
My feelings about what you should say tonight would be best expressed in a monologue from one of my favorite made-for-TV series.
Okay, let's hear it.
Don't you see, man? We need a woman to represent us. A woman brings more heart, more compassion. And think how smart she must be to become a top contender in a field dominated by men. It's time for a woman, bro. And with this woman, we can fly.
What series was that from?
Oh, that's from House of Dragons, now streaming on HBO Max.
Is there anything that you think that maybe I shouldn't bring up tonight?
Lord help me.
Well, don't lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness to thy neighbor.
Indeed, especially
Oh, wow, she's
thy
in trouble.
neighbor's election results.
Just so you know, there will be a fact checker there tonight.
Oh, that's great. Who?
Jesus. And maybe don't say anything negative about Catholics.
I would never do that, no matter where I was. That would be like criticizing Detroit in Detroit.
Does it bother you that that Trump guy insults you all the time? Because it really bothers my friends and me.
Oh, Mary Catherine, it's very important to always remember.
Can I just turn it off?
Why
never
is it-
let anyone
why is there
tell you
more?
who you are.
Why are you making us do this,
what they're doing,
Tim?
Guantanamo?
Why?
Why is there more?
I just want to point out the quote that she chose implies that men are smarter. Because imagine how smart she must be to succeed in a field dominated by men. It's like,
What's wrong with that?
why would that be more difficult for a woman?
So what was wrong
If
with
she's
what
not-
she said?
She implied that men are smarter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
I'm
she
just
was
saying,
so she was correct.
I'm just saying
is
it's
picking up on
interesting
that
she made that
sexism.
implication. It's interesting that she said that.
Seamus, are you saying men are made in the image and likeness of God? Therefore, perhaps women who were made after. Are you getting
Well,
at
Eve came from Adam's side. and we-
St. Thomas Aquinas had that, right?
that St. Thomas Aquinas?
See?
yes.
I've been to
There you
mass.
go.
I've been to
Okay,
mass 9
see?
times.
For you.
9
Wait,
times.
are you saying
he's
that
getting
he had
Aquinas,
like
he's getting Aquinas pilled over here?
Well,
that
yeah.
St. Thomas Aquinas had like a logical formula for why men are smarter than women?
No,
wouldn't
no.
say
Aquinas
that.
is referring to the book of Genesis. He's referring to the Bible.
Oh, so he's like straight up the Bible says men are smarter than women?
No, it's not that men are
That's
smarter.
that's
It's that men are
offensive.
supposed to be
Not
leaders.
smarter, but yeah, that men are
aren't
meant
smart.
to be
Men
leaders,
and
yeah.
women are equal in the sense that we are made in God's image and likeness and have dignity and value, but men are meant to lead.
Can I just
That's-
Unless you're Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, not all men
Not
rise.
all
to the
men.
occasion.
Yeah, yeah.
Not all men.
One at a time.
Yeah. This, for anyone wondering, by the way, if you're young enough to have not seen SNL in the 90s, this should answer your question that it was not funny back then either.
yeah, right.
Yeah, this was not funny even in the heyday. I like this era of SNL.
I'll
These
even
characters are not good.
I'll even say that I watched SNL like pretty regularly throughout the 90s. I loved like the Chris Farley era going into like the Chris Kattan, Will Ferrell era. This very much was Will Ferrell era. SNL were kind of a forgettable, sketch. Like I remember the sketch, like seeing the character. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that sketch. And she used to smell her fingers. And there was actually a movie. I think they did a movie of Mary
so, too.
Kattan.
They do a film out of that?
Superstar. Yeah, they
Was
did.
it Jimmy Fallon the other character, or was it Chris Kattan?
I
Probably
couldn't-
Chris Kattan.
Honestly, couldn't even tell. I
Fallon was
know
later.
Farrell was in it.
Yeah.
As like the boyfriend character, and that's pretty much the only
You
thing I
think her
remember about
writers,
the movie.
Kamala's writers were like, we need a Catholic character.
But no, so what clearly what's going on here is that, and I'll just say this: the theater kids need to be stopped.
100%.
We have a theater kid occupied government.
I think yeah,
These-
John
Decog.
Boyle did a
this-
video on that. Where he was like,
This
talking-
is it's like that's literally what's going on, is that Kamala Harris's entire campaign is being run by theater kids.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone other than theater kids who remembers this character or remember. It's like Molly Shannon. Like, by the way, Molly Shannon is older than Kamala Harris. She's actually, yeah, she is. No, true. It's look it up. So Kamala Harris is 59. Molly Shannon is 60. Fact check me. That she's actually older than Kamala Harris. It's like you couldn't find something just.
Oh yeah, she's 60.
There you
they
go.
should have pulled out It's Pat for
Like
the trans movement.
a little bit. Oh no, you can't do that. No, and that was Julia Sweeney, by the way. Right. Boom. Keep them coming. I'm telling you, I like that era of SNL. That it just goes to show you that like Nick Offerman had like a song this week. Like there, it's like I'm kid you not. He had a song. He has a song that he put out. So from Parks and Rec,
Right.
which is even slightly a little bit newer than this SNL character. But again, just they're trying so hard to find ways to appeal to millennials, and it's just so cringe.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It shows.
It feels like Gen Xers though, because I was a little kid when she was doing this weird armpit sniffing stuff.
yeah.
I remember it.
Yeah.
Like I remember it.
wasn't
and,
funny.
and it was like I the character was funny.
If Beavis and Butthead endorsed Kamala Harris, I might consider voting for her.
Yeah, but Mike Judge would never do that.
I know.
We're on SNL recently, and those were good sketches.
Because Mike Judge is based.
Yeah, he is.
Like Mike Judge is like friends with Alex Jones. Like he used to go on InfoWars back in the day. He's like lives in Austin, I think, now. And yeah, like no, Mike Judge is great. He would never keep in mind that Mike Judge also made Idiocracy, which completely predicted everything that we are living in now, like almost 20 years exactly to it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Costco. I love you. One thing about this sketch too.
I met my wife there.
They're not the most biting, horrible anti-Catholic jokes you've ever heard, but just the safe, edgy, making fun of Catholics thing. It's so old. It's so over. I'm not even just saying that as a Catholic. I think everyone watches that and they're like, oh, that was so brave.
The Gretchen Whitmer Doritos thing.
That was so weird.
Well, and
was
Trump
disgusting.
And Trump turned that into a joke. He said, "Where's Kamala Harris tonight? I guess she's not here. Maybe she's in Michigan getting communion with Gretchen Whitmer."
Did he say that?
Yeah, he said that.
Oh my gosh, I missed that one.
Yeah, so Trump actually makes a much better, more nuanced Catholic joke than Kamala Harris ever could. And actually, Seamus, I'll throw this out there since I didn't really plan to talk about this, but here we are. So when that character came out, so in the 90s, the church was much more powerful of a force in society than it is now. And so she's playing this ubiquitous Catholic schoolgirl type character, which was a stereotype in the 90s. But Catholic schools don't exist anymore the way they used to.
It's true.
They're all getting consolidated. They are getting smashed. They are getting my own Catholic high school. So Tim, like, I used to talk about, come on here and talk about my hometown. And I'm getting like fact checked about this because I talked about it on the Tucker tour. And so I got this journalist, fake, journalist, whatever, was like, well, is it true that your hospital was demolished and now there's a Planned Parenthood? Like, yes. And so my Catholic high school was actually in the process of being torn down as I was with Tucker on the tour. Wow. And I've gone back and I did a video of it right there. Like, you can see there's a whole of it. So basically, when it was funny back in the day because the church just had a more ubiquitous role in society today, whereas now where like Catholics really are feeling like they're persecuted, which, by the way, persecuted by people like Kamala Harris, who said, if you're a member of the Knights of Columbus, which is like the most vanilla, these are like the church and like the guys who bring you to your pew, like, hey, there's 2 seats over here, there's 4 seats over there. They do coffee and donuts after services.
No, they're radical Catholics, Jack.
And she was calling them radicals and saying that you were like, she was likening them to the KKK, which, if you know anything about the history.
Which doesn't like Catholics, by the way.
Which, if you know anything about the history, actually, the Knights of Columbus were, They were actually instituted to protect Catholics from the KKK. But whatever, Dems are real racist. And it was. So because, and then traditional Catholics like Latin Mass Catholics or Trad Caths are actually being persecuted by the likes of Kamala Harris and her administration right now. That's why it comes across as mean-spirited, even though and I'll just be fair, like, I don't think that Molly Shannon was like being necessarily anti-Catholic. Like, she was being very cringe.
She probably didn't even think about it, but that's my point. That's why it's safe edgy. It's just totally anodyne. Jokes about the Catholic Church are bland.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that the power differential is totally changed from where it was in the 90s to where it is now.
And even in the 90s, they were faking it in a lot of ways. This idea that the Catholic Church was in charge of everything as an institution. Like, yes, let's punch up at those nuns.
But let me pull up this clip from Trump. I want to get his response in here because you guys are going to love it. Trump War Room posted this video. I hope you guys enjoy it.
She doesn't go to any.
Wait, let me start it over. Sorry.
Kamala Harris said she thinks you're exhausted. That's why you're canceling events. Are you exhausted?
What event did I cancel? I haven't canceled. She doesn't go to any events. She's a loser. She doesn't go to any events. She didn't even show up for the Catholics last night at the hotel. It was insulting. All they are is sound bites. So today I was at Fox and Friends at 7 in the morning. I then went to 2 different other appearances. I then made about 15 phone calls. I've gone 48 days now without arrest, and I've got that loser who doesn't have the energy of a rabbit. Let me tell you something.
The energy of a rabbit. Energy of a rabbit.
With the Catholics. So all they do is put.
He was up at 7 a.m.
Yeah,
like live on air.
Take even a little bit of a rest. Not only am I'm not even tired. I'm really exhilarated. You know why?
I'm exhilarated.
Because the American people don't want her. She didn't pass her bar exam. She's not a smart person. She's not a person that should represent our country. So I just want to let you know that very clearly.
I just wanted to let you know that.
I did like it when the second time he called her a loser and said she doesn't have the energy of a rabbit.
This reminds me of his Rosie O'Donnell promo. It's like, she's got the face of a truck driver. It's just those classical. But there is actually something that there's some truth to the question that is being asked about why have some of the events gone that were on the public schedule that have been taken off, and different rallies have been or events have been changed from rallies to messaging events, or stuff that was done like in my hometown area to Doylestown. I'm not from Doylestown, Norristown, but it's like 30 minutes away. He was going to do this event, this huge public event. Seamus, I'm sure you heard of it. He was going to go to the Polish National Shrine, Our Lady of Czestochowa, with the president of Poland, and yet suddenly it was just taken off the schedule at the last minute. And the question was, why was this?
Because they keep trying to kill him.
Well, and so the media narrative has been like, oh, he's exhausted, that's why they're doing this. No, number one, they're throwing crazy amounts of events out there, and that's why it doesn't hit with the narrative. But the truth behind the matter is that there have been a lot of security concerns, and one of the reasons that they've been taking a lot of events off is these security concerns, or are these security concerns, and the Secret Service coming in saying like, hey, we don't think we can keep you safe at all of these various things. And so that's why they've been truncating certain things from a public event becomes a messaging event and it's press only, or you have to cancel that. And we just, by the way, we're chasing ballots over at Our Lady of Czestochowa. I went to the Polish Mass. It was awesome. So they have Latin Mass there, English Mass, and Polish Mass all in the same morning that you can all go to. And it's incredible. But yeah, that's really what's going on. And obviously, I can understand why Trump doesn't want to say that publicly, but that's actually what's going on. So the media is just lying. They're saying he's exhausted when it really is.
They're lying?
That I know, right?
Can't believe it.
But when it really is that Democrats keep trying to kill him.
Yes.
And that's why. And by the way, they've already taken out one Trump supporter this year named Corey Compatoria by an Act Blue donor, and that's one of the reasons that they've had to be really careful with his schedule.
And if
And he's
these
also
attacks
done
were happening to Kamala, they would have locked down the country.
Oh yeah.
Oh, my
we
gosh.
We did a
after
cartoon
her all the
about
time.
that. Yeah.
Insane.
Well, they also let's mention this. It's not even something we have to explain by saying that there have been attempted assassinations, even though that's relevant information, because he's still done way more events than she has. He's done way more appearances than she has. He's done more town halls than she has. He's done more radio interviews, more television. On every single metric, he has done more than her by a significant
Joe
margin.
Biden campaigned from the basement, and he still won.
I mean, maybe we should stop considering that Trump's statements are opinions and that there's actually a fact basis to calling Kamala a loser.
Objectively,
Yeah, she's an objectively.
What has she ever won?
Yeah.
Well, she was given the nomination.
Well, there was that primary, that she won. Remember the one where she, where she won all the votes
Right. She
of the
won those
Democrat
chain
Party.
guns that she made.
In the big democracy. And they've actually pointed out that she hasn't had a competitive election in years, unless you count the primary of 2020, which she resoundingly lost. In fact, every single one of us in this room got exactly as many nomination votes as Kamala Harris in 2020 and 2024.
It's pretty good for us, you know what I mean?
We're doing well. We could run as Democrats. I liked when Trump was like. He's like, Chuck here, he calls it the Democratic Party because he thinks it sounds nice, but I call it the Democrat Party because it sounds worse.
Patting him on the back.
And he's like patting him on the back. What's really funny though is like, it's very clear, and you can, which by the way, like Governor Hochul is like sitting right there.
Letitia James.
Letitia James is up in the back
Bloomberg's
and is
in front of
clapping, who is currently trying to put him in jail right now. And by the way, if he loses, if he's still alive, that because they keep trying to take him out, that he will be put in jail, right? And this is why, like, everyone needs to be voting, like, right now. Like, stop what you're doing and go vote.
Yeah. How many states have voting going on right now?
A lot of, in swing states, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, North Carolina have it all open. So those are like 4 of the top 7, I believe, and Michigan as well. I know has it. I don't know off the top of my head about Wisconsin. I think they do, but. So that's your 7 right there. So your Rust Belt and your Sun Belt, basically, and then Nevada. And so Letitia James is like currently trying to put him in jail, and yet she's up there clapping. It's like, you know what it reminded me of in a weird way? It reminded me of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. So do you remember at the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, that moment where they let Kyle like walk up to the judge and actually stand right behind the judge when they were watching that piece of footage and they couldn't get it up on a certain monitor? Yeah. And it was like, wait, hold on a second. This guy's on trial for double murder and nobody seems to have a problem with him just standing right behind the judge like that. Think of the subtext here. If this were an actual hardened criminal that people thought was a real murderer, you would never let him do that.
Ted Bundy's
you would never. Yeah, there's Ted Bundy or like Norman Bates or something. Like you would never let him just stand behind the judge. I watched like all the Psycho movies this week. And then I watched Kamala Harris, so it's just very similar. Like Trump is still in office. He's been in office for 10 years. Like no, sweetheart, you're the one with the bloody knife.
He's been running.
And Joe Biden,
but he's been running.
He's
You
been
know
running.
what I'm talking about.
Right. So that's kind of like what this was in a weird. So basically, in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, you knew that was the moment that everybody sort of knew that this kid was innocent. Like nobody actually thinks he's a killer, or else you'd never treat him this way.
Be in shackles.
He'd be in shackles. They never.
And everyone's there in the room with Trump because they don't think
they number one, they don't think he's a criminal. Number two, they all know that he's the real president. And they all just sort of deferred to him in that room as if he was the leader.
And his jokes
because
deflated
they know
all of
he
that
is.
pressure.
Exactly.
And they deflated even the
Exactly.
attempts in your book. His jokes cut through all of that. And then that video from Kamala, I can't even imagine those jokes being told.
She got booed.
Well, it's like when you survive 2 assassinations, like you pretty much, it's like, what are you going to do after that?
Destroyed.
So you just walk right in and with no fear.
And Gaffigan made fun of Letitia to her face too.
That was great.
You know,
he was like, "Don't worry if you don't have any allegations. Letitia James is sitting right here."
Oh,
was Eric Adams in the room?
Yeah, no, Eric Adams was there, and that was like, he's like, Eric Adams is here. I know he's got a special diet, but maybe we can serve him some turkey tonight.
Oh,
dude, it was great.
It was very good.
I think
jokes.
I think the reality is Kamala couldn't go because she doesn't have the wherewithal to speak publicly like that.
Well, so here's the thing, right?
she's not good at it. No, it's true.
She's been challenging Trump to a debate publicly. She's been desperate to have it. Debate me. Why won't you debate me? Debate me again. Debate me tomorrow. Debate me Tuesday. Debate me Wednesday. I'm going to be outside of Mar-a-Lago, lying in the bushes like this Ukrainian foreign fighter guy, with a Kalashnikov, waiting for you to debate me. And she could have just showed up, and that would have been like a quasi debate. And yet she chose not to. And this is the reason. And, Seamus has the cartoon, and we all saw this week. This is what happens when you put her in an uncontrolled environment where she has to stand on her own 2 feet, where she doesn't have 2 mainstream media blockers and tacklers running interference for her. She can't hang.
She can't
just
fake
straight up
humor.
can't hang.
Well, yeah,
fake authentic humor.
I'm so optimistic right now.
She can't fake authentic anything.
With like everything we're seeing right now today with the polls. And Trump is winning every battleground state right now in aggregate. Okay, so this is not just a single poll. All of the polls combined and averaged out for every battleground state have Donald Trump up, beating Kamala Harris.
Well, and I want to preface what I'm about to say with this. Get out and vote. Statistics don't vote. Polls don't vote. Gambling odds don't vote. Our opinions don't vote. You got to get out there and vote. That said, I think part of why Kamala is such a particularly horrible candidate is because we got, or I should say the Democratic Party got, the worst of both worlds from the primary process with her. So one of the difficult things about presidential primaries is when you run at a primary, you have to signal to the most extreme faction of your party that you are going to be the person who they want to nominate for president. And then as soon as you start running for president, if you get the nomination, you have to abandon all of those things. You have to distance yourself from those things and say, no, I'm actually a moderate. I'm going to appeal to normal Americans. I'm going to try to appeal to the other side to some degree. But the advantage is supposed to be that you have sharpened yourself by debating other candidates in the party to the point where you were able to get votes and delegates from people in your own party because they saw you debate and they said, this is someone who can go up against other people. Kamala did a whole lot of the signaling to the far left in her party that she was the person they should pick. And she did basically none of the successfully arguing with people who are trying to tear her apart part of the primary process. And now she's the nominee.
Yeah, this is
so all they have is baggage. The only
worse.
thing they have from her primary process is the baggage.
Let me play this clip. I got to play this clip from Donald Trump at the Al Smith dinner. Take a listen.
There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me.
That was so good. That right there,
just
a single joke perfectly exemplifies why Kamala did not show up. Yeah. When he says white dudes for Harris, the woman yells and he goes, that doesn't sound like it. That is quick wit. That was funny, even outside of the joke he had scripted. Trump knows how to play a crowd. This is why The Apprentice did well. This is why Donald Trump was a celebrity, because he knows how to entertain large groups of people, and that wins elections.
Norm Macdonald actually, the late great Norm Macdonald actually praised Trump for this once, and he did this interview up in Canada. And he was talking about, and he kind of catches himself. He's like, I went to one of these Trump events once where he speaks to these large halls and, just to see how it was. And he's like, of course, caveat. And he said that what he's doing is an act, and he's doing an act the same way that, Norm comes from the stand-up world. And he's like, this is the same kind of act that anyone would be able to do, and he's actually quite good at it. And if you're someone who doesn't like him, then maybe you should try to understand why it is that so many people like it, and it's clearly very effective. And he pointed out that one of the reasons why current SNL isn't able to do a good impression of him is because to do an impression of someone, which, by the way, Dana Carvey's Joe Biden is the best one they've ever done, is because to do a good impression, Norm said, you have to actually like the person. And what does that mean? Is that because nobody hates themselves. Right. So if you hate the person and you're doing an impression through that, which all of Kamala's humor is, because it's all mean-spirited, and this, Seamus, you know humor better than anyone here, that if it's mean-spirited, it will come across in the art and it will not be funny.
So take a look at when Alec Baldwin was doing Donald Trump.
Right.
It didn't make sense. He was just making weird faces and going, yeah, yeah. And it was like, or when Family Guy mocked Trump, it was over the top, a clown with an orange face and tiny hands fighting Trump. And it's like, but these aren't like, here's the problem I have with this is make fun of Trump by exaggerating the things that we know he does. So when I do the Trump voice, I always just go cartoonish with it. The radical left. And then I always say, everyone agrees. At least that's what I've been told. So it's like, take actual characteristics, exaggerate them, and people understand the joke you're making. What we see with the liberals and SNL and the left, when they mock Trump, they make up fake things about him and then make a character based on the fake ideas they have about him.
Yeah, exactly.
Shane Gillis has the best Trump impersonation.
He's
Without
great.
question.
It's great.
I think some of the best Trump impressions, and by the way, Trump is far from my strongest. I do the Trump impression because I'm the person available to do it for the cartoons. But one of the issues with the most Trump impressions is they're making fun of this idea. It's not even just that they don't like him. It's that they have no idea who he is. They have this idea of what Donald Trump is in their heads that doesn't correspond to reality. So it's like, I love Russia and Putin. And that's the joke. It's stuff like, I'm a fascist. All of the jokes are really lame and overly political and just trying to make a point rather than just riffing on some of the silliness that you can get out of a Trump
Alec
impression.
Baldwin kept doing a weird thing with his mouth where he would like squeeze his lips together and go like this.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't do that. But the reason why he was doing it is because the photos that they use of Trump are mid while Trump is speaking, and he'll be talking, and then he'll go like this, and then they'll freeze that image of him and use that. So in Alec Baldwin's mind, he doesn't watch clips of Trump. He doesn't listen to what Trump has to say. He sees pictures in the liberal press over and over again of Trump making that face, and so he makes the face. Then anybody who actually watches the news is like, why is he doing that face? What is that?
That's what, in that interview you're referencing with Norm Macdonald, he talked about something him and his co-writer did not like, which was they called clapter, which is just easy jokes.
John Oliver.
It wasn't John Oliver, it was Jim someone. But that's what John Oliver does.
Yeah, that's John Oliver's whole career.
Terrible, but specifically they were talking about Seth Meyers, which is the guy who took over Weekend Update that Norm used to do. And they were saying they just make jokes based off headlines, because they're buying into the caricature of the person, not the real person.
And the point is to entrance people and like, this is the acceptable opinion. This is okay. This is what we believe. This is what we agree.
Right.
You continue to clap for it. And the point is not for it to be funny. It's not to be factual. It's to create a sense of tribal coherence so that you identify with the political positions, you identify with the philosophy, and none of it is based on reality. It's that meme. Remember that meme that Elon shared, that low testosterone males, they don't look at, well, what's true. They say, what are okay with people? Yeah. What's okay for the vast majority of people to think I think is true, what's okay based on that. But the reason why this particular video is funny, making fun of the white dudes for Harris, is because, and this is why humor is like 150% of the truth. The reason it's funny is because the vast majority of polyamorous males are liberal. So, so the white dudes for Harris, they do actually have, honey, get in here. Kamala's killing it. Bring your boyfriend. Because that's actually
your boyfriend. They got him. They got Trump.
Do you think, and I haven't done any reporting on this, but do you think that he had any like professional, he's got a lot, obviously he's gone on like Theo Vaughn and a bunch of these different, comedian podcasts and shows. So do you think he had anyone professional?
I think Barron is sending in memes.
Yep. I think Barron had to have helped them with the wives and the wives' lovers, and I wouldn't be surprised if Barron said cuck, and they went, I don't think the people here will understand what that is, so let's say wives.
I wouldn't be
lovers.
surprised if Tony Hinchcliffe wrote a few of those jokes. Some of those were so sharp and so like roast worthy, like new school Don Rickles type, that those guys, that crowd, the Theos, the Kill Tony crowd, I think they must have written a few.
Trump has not gone on Kill Tony.
No, but we're manifesting it.
No, we can't manifest that.
Well, no, that's
he's got there's 2 weeks, 2 opportunities for him to go on Kill Tony. That would be the biggest podcast in the history of podcasting.
He was on with the Undertaker today.
Are you sure he wasn't on?
Oh, really?
He's on the Undertaker.
I thought he was on. Okay, so Shane Gillis was really good.
Donald
Trump
on
and Trump have to do it. It has to happen. After his showing last night, I think he'd hang, and he could take it. He could take the jokes.
Oh,
Kamala
dude,
can't sit
he
up
can
there
take it and he can dish it. What would Kamala do? You know, I made a cartoon about what she would
It
do.
would be the one time she wasn't laughing.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? Oh man, I think it was actually maybe Mark Normand who said this. He had a really good point. He's like, one of the ironies is Trump is very funny and he never laughs, and Kamala's not funny and she's always laughing.
It's a great point.
I can't get that out of my head now that I've noticed it. It's so true. She laughs all the time. She doesn't say anything funny. Donald Trump is hysterical. He has the whole room in stitches and he's just standing up there like.
Yep. Confidence, and he's more authentic than most of these other people.
I must have watched that video of he and Melania putting the chocolate bars on top of the Minion child maybe 15 times.
Dude, it's so good.
She follows this. Yes, he does it because the Minion's got a bag, but the bag is
The bag's
like
not open. I realized that's why he did that.
I've gone like full
haven't
Zapruder
seen
film.
this one.
Like so. By the way, like we wrote the whole book on the assassination.
I
right, by
zoomed
the way.
in.
But
I zoomed
I
in,
probably
too.
did like just as much research on this video of the Minion on Halloween at whatever year it was in the White House, and it's just the funniest thing because this kid's dressed up. It's one of those like. You know how they have like the inflatable costumes now? So it's inflatable, and he goes for the bag, but for whatever reason, the bag it's like not open.
It's in his right hand, and the kid's like waddling
And the
up
kid's
there.
like waddling, and it's
Waddling up
just
there like this.
awkward. So Trump just kind of looks at him, sizes it up, and he puts the candy right on the head.
But he doesn't just put it on his head.
And then
He puts it. He taps it on.
then he pats him on the head, and then Melania follows up. She's like, "Well, if that's what we're doing,"
And then the boy, he takes the L like a man.
he just
assume
takes
it's a
the
boy.
L. He just takes the
That
L.
wasn't an L. That was a win.
That's a win.
Well, it happens.
President
They
put
fall-
chocolate
they
on your
fall-
head.
Oh, but he lost
It
it. He lost the
falls off.
chocolate. He lost the
Falls off.
chocolate.
He turns around and he just walks away. And then a mother, it looks like, scrambles over to pick it up. You know?
So
He
good.
bounces it on the head and taps.
So good.
He's a funny guy.
He's hysterical.
Do you remember he looked at when he looked at the solar eclipse?
Oh yeah, yeah. But they made fun of him for that, and I'm like, he looked up and glanced and looked down. It was a split second.
No, I didn't know it was, but
it's a
still,
photo.
It was this
They take a
whole, like,
photo
it was
and
this
they
whole
turn
like,
that
don't
into
do
his
it,
story.
don't do it, don't do it. And he's like, I'm gonna do it.
I still think one of the best things ever is at the Butler rally when he started with, as I was saying.
That was hysterical.
was-
Wow, dude.
Well,
That was pretty. I mean,
as I was saying.
this is one
because he
of the-
said he was going to do it, right? He said over and over, and we were all. So you were there, I was there, Joshua was there. Were you guys there at all? You guys that because he kept saying that's what I was going to do, and what was great about it was he didn't just say. As I was saying, he actually did like the full paragraph of the speech of whatever was going to come next. Like he completed his whole spot. Everybody was clapping over it in the moment, so you couldn't really. It's very emotional, obviously, and you couldn't really like get it all out. But I noticed that he went and did like the full, completed his thought. Biden was here, and then it went down, and then he came in. I would count in, and it was down, and then Biden comes in, it went up, and he finished his entire thought because in his head, in his mind, when J13 happened, he was in the middle of a speech, and he there's some sense because he always gives speeches because he always has been for a decade now, and you know Kamala is right about that. He has been giving public speeches for a decade. That he just wanted to finish.
He
the
even
speech.
turned that into a bit.
And he's
like
turned that
that's
into a bit. Yeah.
A bit was interrupted by an assassination attempt. He returned to the place.
And he was like, I'm going to finish that.
Well, this is also the difference between somebody who is a performer who made their living in the private sector and built a brand around their own name, as opposed to a politician who has focus grouped every aspect of their personality and who you have to choose from a set of other politicians who are also not that interesting or funny or good on their feet. I mean, our political leaders are so mediocre in every single way. It's not just that they're not very intelligent. It's not just that they're not very moral. They're just not that entertaining either.
Right.
I love my favorite part of his.
Yeah, they don't have that much charisma.
My favorite part of his remarks last night was when he told the story about doing this dinner last time, which is when he was running against Hillary.
Right.
And he said, I was going pretty hard on her. I was being really mean. Even my side was saying, you're going too tough. You should stop. He goes, I'm going to do it anyway. You know, I love that he's just.
Do you remember what he
so
did?
down.
Do you remember what he did in 16? And Hillary was there sitting like, I think it was like Trump, then Melania, then Hillary, if I remember correctly. And what Trump did was he had a routine that was already worked out, and he goes, I'm not really going to, he did a little bit of it, and he said, I'm going to cut this short. He's like, because I got something else I want to do. And he just reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a stack of WikiLeaks that he had printed out, and it was Hillary's own emails, and then he just landed that down and started reading her own emails back to her from WikiLeaks.
I want to pull up this story. This is from the Post Millennial. The View host praises Kamala for skipping Catholic Al Smith charity dinner. I love it. And you know what? This is the story.
Love the ad up there too. By
That's a great ad.
I love that.
The Al Smith dinner has not been skipped by a candidate since Mondale, and Mondale lost 49 states. So I think we've got this phenomenon where no matter what Kamala does, no matter what she does, there is some weird alternate reality where what she's doing is good.
Yep.
And to better explain this, I want to play for you a clip from Freedom Tunes.
We just made this one.
So this is...
is this the actual interview or is this the cartoon?
So this is the cartoon.
Okay, thank you.
This is
So
the
you
cartoon.
guys-
Thank you. We worked hard to make it look as realistic as possible.
It's very hard to tell.
This is a 1-minute rendition of what it's like when Kamala engages the media.
Ms. Harris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brad.
Thank you.
We'll see how this goes for you.
Mrs. Harris, how many people do you believe have crossed the borders? Miss Harris. Kamala, please. Mrs. Vice President, it's a simple question.
I'm speaking, excuse me.
It's an injection.
Wait, it gets better. Wait,
does she have an injector
listen.
seat?
All right, well, I'm just gonna say it. She destroyed him. Oh my gosh. Right? Oh golly, he's so embarrassed.
I bet those Republicans are regretting that one.
Kamala.
So Seamus masterfully captured.
Thank you.
The exact point that I wanted to make with this story from the Post-Millennial is that when I'm hanging out today with some friends who are not very political, and they were like, "Yo, that interview, that was crazy. Like, it was terrible." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, for some reason, when you go to these Democrat pundits, they're like, what? That was the best interview ever done. She sure showed him."
Which is so nuts, right? Because, listen, obviously I want Trump to win the election. I think he's a lot better than her. But when he doesn't have his best showing, I don't pretend that he did. Even in the debate where Biden ended up dropping in the polls massively and needed to drop out, I thought Biden did terribly. But I said, it's not that I think Trump had a phenomenal showing. I didn't think it was his best appearance by any stretch. Biden just did really poorly. They can't say the same thing about they are incapable of saying, yeah, you know what, that was an off day for her. She didn't do a great job.
Look at the second debate so the second debate for Trump, the first debate for Kamala. I don't think you found a lot of Trump supporters, myself included, who were like, "Oh my gosh, Trump did so good."
I didn't
feel
feel that way.
there were certainly moments where you're like, "Oh, that was a really good moment," or "That was good." But I think there were a lot of people pointed out that like she did better than a lot of people expected.
Yeah.
And really most people were just kind of focused on the moderators interjecting the whole time.
The only like crack in the glass that got through was when Biden was miserably performing, and they all just collectively went, "Holy crap, it was so bad, there was no denying it."
But even after that, they kept saying sharp as attack. It was not until the new party line was issued that they were willing to acknowledge that. Once they went, okay, this is, I guess, too ridiculous, which is strange to me that they draw the line there when they say men can get pregnant. But at the same time, she performed absolutely horribly here. Her party's still trying to say she did well. And I want to shout one thing out related to the cartoon that we made here. One of my favorite comments, you'll notice at the end, Chaz he's cheering, "Kamala, Kamala, Kamala," and then she crashes through the ceiling and crushes him. My favorite comment was they timestamped that and they said he made the mistake of chanting her name 3 times and summoning her.
So you guys should definitely subscribe to Freedom Tunes. It's about to hit 1 million.
Yeah, we're 20,000 subs away from 1 million. Get on over there, subscribe, please.
In the Trump Kamala debate, I said right away, Trump got flustered. Kamala went right for him. She attacked his ego. Trump went right for it. It was predictable, and that was not good for Trump. However, Trump won. You know why? Kamala needed that opportunity in the press to say, "Here's my plan for you, the American people. Here's the economic plan. Here's your healthcare plan. Here's your immigration plan." And instead, I will throw it to Ian Crossland for the best example of what that night ended up doing. Ian comes in the next day being like, "I hate them both. I hate them both." Trump was just like, "Oh, my rallies, oh, my rallies." But all Kamala did was just insult him over his rallies. And like, she wasn't even doing anything. And so in the end, yeah, the people who don't like Trump don't like Trump. But Kamala needed to offer something to people like Ian, who's sitting there being like, "Please give me a reason not to vote for Trump." And then I said to Ian right away, "Do you like RFK Jr.?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, RFK Jr. says that if Trump wins, he wins." And Ian's like, "Yeah." So right now the edge is for Trump, and Kamala lost the opportunity with that debate. But I don't think anyone's under the belief that Trump masterfully handled it.
No, so I thought he was crushing her at the beginning of the debate, and then he let her get to him when she brought up the rallies. And as soon as she baited him into that and he got angry, I think he started performing really poorly. At the beginning of the night, she was really, really nervous. He wasn't. He was calm and composed. Then she got him with the rallies. He started getting upset, and then his optics were downhill after that. I have not heard or seen a Democrat give a similar analysis of Kamala completely floundering in her conversation with Brett Baer. None of them have said, okay, well, she said this thing or this thing that I thought was good. But when he pointed out that 79% of Americans think the country is going in the wrong direction and that she is the vice president of the administration they're blaming for that, maybe her response shouldn't have been, well, Donald Trump is running for president, so it's his fault. Like, why?
She
why
didn't
is
say
it there
that? She just went, but Donald Trump is running, and he goes,
Yeah,
what?
it's
and
like,
she's
why
like, you know what
can't
I
there
mean? And he
just
goes,
be
no, I don't.
No,
that
actually,
level of
I
intellectual honesty to be like, no, it was really bad for her.
I think they're overcompensating.
So
they're in a real pickle.
I can also explain a little bit about why that is because she is very vindictive as a person, and I think yeah, I know, right? And I think that what you're seeing as well is that a lot of these media types are hedging their bets because they know nobody wants to be the one person who kind of goes first in order to do this. Because let's say that, and this is a very close election, right? Trump's got a lot of momentum right now, clearly, but it's still going to be very close. The Democrats still control the ballot centers and those ballot machines in the big cities: Detroit, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Las Vegas. But Las Vegas is in a swing state, right? Phoenix, shout out to Turning Point Action and the good work they're doing. But all of these early votes, they're coming in, and we're seeing a lot of Republican support there, much bigger than we've seen before for the early voting. I love the early voting. Elon's doing a bus tour. He's there. My brother's with him right now. But still, it's going to tighten up. And so what they're doing is they're hedging their bets because they know that if she gets in and she remembers that you were the person that was trashing her after the whatever it is, the debate or the interview, now you're not getting invited to the White House. Now you're not at the Christmas party. Now you're not getting on the plane. Now you're not getting the interview, the sit down, et cetera, et cetera.
Good point.
That's exactly. No, I was told that earlier today. That's exactly what's going on.
Access journalism.
Yeah.
That's pathetic.
What it seems like is a sort of cult of personality. Like if you examine cult-like behavior and formation of, I like to call it mass formation hypnosis, is the term that I prefer to use. What we see happening around her is focus on identity. So when I talk to Kamala stans, supporters, and enjoyers, why they like her, they just, well, let's see. First of all, so her name is not Donald Trump. So she's not white like Trump. She's Democrat, and Trump is not. And everything goes back to who she is not and what she is not. And then, okay, so and then they become a Planned Parenthood ad. Have you ever seen a Planned Parenthood ad? What is it? It's 3 words: abortion, abortion, abortion. Planned Parenthood ad.
Right.
That becomes the message of Kamala and the Democrats. And I have a tweet that I like to keep putting up because it keeps going. I'll say Republican plan, and it's safe neighborhoods, good jobs, strong communities, not total abortion access. And then Democrats, not safe neighborhoods, not good jobs, not any of the above. Yes to total abortion freedom. And that seems to be what it is. And that makes me go back to that Al Smith dinner bit that she did, where it was the demographic who resonates with that Planned Parenthood ad, and like throwing a bunch of Easter eggs of things that demographic likes. So they randomly mentioned House of the Dragon on HBO. Like that came out of absolutely nowhere.
Commercial within a commercial.
Yes, and it was, let's see, who's the demographic that watches that? Well, so it's the wine aunt and her husband and her boyfriend. The three of them watch it together. Okay, so we need to work all this stuff in. So it's like a market research by committee. Like, what do you people like? So polling her supporters and try to put all of that into one thing. Like, okay, you watch SNL. Okay, so it's a Catholic thing. So is there anything Catholic related to SNL? And they go dig up this old character from 30 years ago, and they mishmash all of it together. And so it's like product design by committee, that if that process were to create a software product, the software product would be unusable. Whereas Trump's messaging is just like the Shazam app. The Shazam app is like one button. You open the app, you hold it up, Shazam and it finds a song.
And you know what? And I bet they pat themselves in the back too. Like, oh, we found the part. It's Catholic and it's SNL. We're putting them together. Kamala's gonna crush tonight.
All high-fived at the end.
Yeah,
And we found a way to work in Game of
hear
Thrones.
it. You can hear it in and there's even a West Wing like almost reference that they do where, and I've caught the Biden administration a number of times just trying to copy West Wing plot lines, and we're going to backfill the Ukrainian F-15s with our own F-15s, and we're going to get them from Poland. I'm like, that's literally from a West Wing episode, but it was about Taiwan. And it was like, well, the Polish F-15s are going to go here, and then our F-15s
Theater kid occupied government.
No, exactly. It is the theater kid
occupied government.
Patrick Bateman. Like that's literally me. They watch Martin Sheen in that film. Like that is literally me. No, it's not.
Which West
and
Wing
he's also not someone to look up to.
Was and another 30-year-old premise, but this was sort of like the liberal wish casting of the Clinton administration, what they wanted it to be, this wonderful high-minded thing. And they constantly do this where they force meme. They try to like tell you what this is my catchphrase. You're going to repeat it. Remember the coconut thing?
The coconut
thing?
Remember the coconut dances?
I didn't just fall out of the coconut tree. And everyone's like, is that like racist?
Do people say
is that like a thing?
So it
Like,
actually
what
is a racial. So there was a viral post, probably not true, I don't know, but there was someone saying that in Eastern Europe, accusing someone of falling out of a coconut tree was a racist reference to them coming from a region.
Oh my gosh.
A specific region where people were consuming coconuts.
As the resident Slav in the room, I've not heard that one, but I can ask Tanya.
I don't know. It was like a viral post on X. That's what I'm saying. I don't know, probably not true, but someone was like, to imply that someone fell out of a coconut tree was a racist reference to the migrants that are coming to.
Yeah, like you're a coconut eater, like
things like that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird. But remember the coconut dances?
No.
The women were doing those like dances.
Oh gosh, Tim, I have tried so hard to like take an ice pick to my head and just like kill all the brain cells, and I don't drink.
I'll bring it back.
Why are you doing this? Why are you doing
the people must know.
No.
They must know of the horrors.
Well, it's interesting though, because in the same way that we see, here's one of the problems with liberalism, one of the many problems, and I don't just mean leftism.
Just one of the problems.
Yeah, one of the
Seamus,
problems.
Yeah.
I don't just mean leftism, by the way. I mean liberalism, generally speaking, is a belief in it is contingent upon a total denial of obvious realities. And so they don't know how to market to men or women properly because they can't acknowledge the actual differences between the sexes.
That's right.
So when they try to market to women, what they basically do is they put together these marketing campaigns that actually only appeal to terminally online homosexuals, like the brat thing, the coconut tree thing.
I'm sorry, I'm playing
None of this stuff.
Here you go.
No.
Watch this. This is like an MK Ultra trigger.
Didn't it come out that like a bunch of this was paid?
I'm sure a lot.
Probably.
Yeah, a ton of these influencers have been approached with money.
My mother used to.
It's just not.
They're eating the dogs, eating the cats had better.
What? I can't
So
believe it.
What did I say? What did I say?
that really was. We were talking about the Trump debate. So we were talking about the Trump Kamala debate, and I remember. So I can remember when I first went on, and I guess I saw on X that there was a song about eating the dogs, eating the cats.
So good.
And I initially was like, "Oh my gosh!" And this is on Twitter or TikTok. This is on TikTok. Let me check this out. So I go over to TikTok, and I've got like a burner account just so I can see like what's trending and look up stuff. And then I look it up and I see people posting all over it. And there were certainly some people who were anti-Trump about it. And there were also people who were saying that it was the new lesbian anthem. And there were also, just leave that where it is. And then I was like, no, I'm going to post this. And people are like, are you sure that's pro-Trump? I said, look, what they're doing is they're using Donald Trump's voice, right? And Joshua, it's like you were saying about hypnosis, right? It's Trump's voice. They're dancing to it. They're smiling. They're happy. They're associating Donald Trump with a positive feeling. Even if you tell me that it's anti-Trump or like it's intended, that's not the actual
Above all
effect.
that, it is also kind of dystopian. That there's people dancing about Haitian immigrants.
Well, and then it's all
eating cats and dogs
And
in
the
Ohio.
fact that it is directionally accurate. You know, so,
Which, by the way, Joshua, I should have said this, and you haven't said it, that you live like right down the street from Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, so I live in Dayton, and then Springfield is the next town over. And I went there for the Vivek Ramaswamy had the town hall, and I talked to this little gentleman from Politico, sassy personality, and I tried to be gentle with him, very gentle, and a rather smarmy attitude. I'm going to do an impression. He was like, no, they're not eating the cats. No, they're not eating. No, there's no truth to that. This is the face that he's making at me. And I'm like, oh, okay, right. All right, I'm just going to play.
And you're like, no, dude, I live here. Like,
well, that's their entire playbook. It just in the cringiest, most effeminate way possible, you have to scoff at anything anyone brings to your attention that upsets you. Like, and you're like,
no
shut
truth
up.
to that. And you're like,
it is so obnoxious.
You're like,
You should have just been like, but I'm eating the cats too. Like we do it together. We're neighbors. It'd have been like, what?
he calls me out. I don't always go. You know, he's always frying them up, and you know, sometimes I got
a great cat cook-off.
I got other stuff.
So I say directionally accurate. I think that's the subtext is that it is directionally accurate. Over the top claims. But I have had customers from Haiti, and years ago they described how
these are your ghostwriting clients.
Yes, with nonchalance around the Caribbean. There's no food. You see a stray cat, that's food.
Well, Chris Ruvo posted a video of cats on a grill, and then the media
in Dayton, by the way,
and the media claimed that it's been debunked. And then I was like, well, let me read this. And I read it. There's no debunk at all.
No, never.
They were just like, when we asked the people afterwards, they said, no, we don't do that. What are you talking about? That proves it was wrong. And I'm like, or it proves that they're terrified that they're going to lose status or
that is what the little man from Politico said. Little man from Politico. So he said, with that smarmy voice, shaking his head, kind of twitching a little bit. He said, it's been debunked. It's been debunked. And he used the passive voice. So the way that liberals and leftists, the way that they communicate is, Scott Adams refers to it as word thinking. So they think in words, not in reality, because it's like they live in a socially constructed reality. And so the word choice that they use is so important to pay attention to. Like when they use adverbs, when they say, Trump literally said, the words they say after that, he did not actually say. Mm-hmm. So when he said, it's been debunked, it's the passive voice. What that means is, I haven't been over there. I'm not a boots on the ground reporter. I haven't done that. What that means is my platform, my publication has asserted it's not true because they didn't find evidence, because they didn't look for it. Therefore, it's been
everything they say is literally
it's an appeal to authority.
Exactly. They don't need evidence. They don't need evidence because it is de fide for them that immigrants can't cause problems anywhere. Mm-hmm. It is de fide for them that third world immigrants coming to a developed Western country can't cause problems for anyone ever, and anyone who alleges otherwise is a big bad racist.
Well, okay.
That's their religion. But I just want to make one quick point about this, because as you mentioned, it's known that in certain parts of Haiti, they will eat cat. There's people in Ohio where 20,000 Haitian immigrants were dumped saying, hey, they're taking pets, they're eating cats, they're eating dogs.
The geese and the ducks.
And
then
geese
what
and ducks.
did the liberals say? What do they say?
Well, this is
I
what's
eat duck
hilarious.
too.
This is
We
what's
hunt
hilarious
ducks.
about
We
this
hunt ducks.
is, so we know that they'll do it in their home country. People say they're doing it here. The same liberals and leftists who will tell you that the border is just an imaginary line will tell you that it magically stops people from behaving the way they did in their home country once they get here.
Okay,
and I don't believe that.
I'm just going to say this. I think the song is funny. I don't care if they eat cats or dogs. I don't care. You know what? I'm going to say right now, it's fake. It's been debunked. I accept that. Guess what? Tren de Aragua took over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, and the media ran full speed. It is not happening.
Yep.
And now they're saying it's only a handful. And now they're reporting also they took over 4 complexes in San Antonio as well. So are they probably lying about the cats and dogs? Of course they are. But now they have no choice but to admit police are actually engaging in raids in San Antonio right now because Tren de Aragua took over 4 buildings.
And when are we going to be hearing that it's happening, but it's good?
Yeah, well, it's only a handful.
The conservative case for Tren de Agua.
And actually,
I can't wait till David French puts that one out.
As crazy as it was that Jocelyn Nungary, the 12-year-old who was raped and murdered in outside of Houston, which of course Brett Baer was asking Kamala Harris, like, would you like to apologize to the mother? Just have a little moment of show some humanity, please. And it turned out that they're now finding that the two individuals associated with that have direct connections to Tren de Aragua.
I think a lot of this, a
may have
lot of the
members.
problems we experience in this country are related to the inability of these liberal millennials to empathize with other people. So, for example,
Completely agree.
A 12-year-old gets raped and murdered, and anyone of good conscience is terrified of it. In fact, I question if you played Sound of Freedom to a liberal, are they going to cry in the opening scene? Because that one's hard to watch. That's a very difficult thing to watch.
man.
And I think they don't know or care what a parent feels for their child when these stories happen. That they don't care at all.
I don't know that that's the case because there are a lot of woke, particularly white women who do have children.
And they have Munchausen syndrome by proxy. I don't know that they can empathize with other people.
I think that might be part of it. We do know that liberal women tend to be diagnosed with multiple and more psychiatric disorders and mental illnesses more than like any demographic, and it's not even close. So mental illness could be part of it. I think, in my personal opinion, Trump derangement syndrome is, let's say, an amplifier and also an exemplifier of a pre-existing mental illness. But it's this sort of, how do I feel about that personally? I feel like that's so bad, no one could do that to another person. That has to be exaggerated. Like if you have conversations with white liberal women who have children, and this is pretty universal in any state, in any age, even if you ask people liberal women in their 60s, they will be horrified that you showed them that video. I feel bad. So I feel bad for having seen it. So now it's about me. Let's center my emotions and my feelings. I feel bad that you showed me that. Why would you show that to me? How could you?
Now they're mad at you.
Well, but that's my point. They don't
mad at you.
empathize with the feelings of the other people.
And then they'll say
that's true.
That couldn't be happening here. That's right-wing propaganda.
No, yeah, that's literally.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
And
You liar.
the things that they're doing are so, and the things that they're supporting are so disgusting and so horrible that often it sounds like that. That was one of the problems when the story broke in 2015 about the fact that Planned Parenthood was literally selling baby parts. People were going, "Oh, come on, that's crazy. Planned Parenthood isn't selling baby parts."
And by the way,
well,
who
you know they're
who was it?
dismembering them.
Wait, James. Who? So David Daleiden. Daleiden.
And Kamala Harris prosecuted
who was the
him. That's
person
right,
who
Kamala Harris
prosecuted him? Was threw him away for filming it.
Not the
was
people
Kamala
selling
Harris.
baby parts. She didn't prosecute them.
Donald Trump, at the debate with Kamala, says she wants transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants who are detained. And the liberal media went, Trump is crazy and making these things up, despite the fact it was CNN K-File that reported that in the first place.
Yo, have you noticed that almost all of like the NFL ads that Trump is running are about that?
Oh, yeah. And then Kamala got asked by Brett Baer, and she's like, I'm going to follow the law with it.
Yeah.
He's like,
I will follow the law.
Like, what? That's not what.
That's not what you said.
That's what they did in Springfield.
That's not what you said, James.
She said, I have followed the law.
No, she went,
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
See, I'm mixing up the cartoon and the real one again. I keep having issues with this, but no, the complete inability, and Tim, I think you're right, because it's also. I think it's also that they will have like the toxic empathy, and shout out to Ali Beth Stuckey, who he was doing that, and suicidal empathy with these out groups. But when there's a group that is closer to them, and you've seen this in studies as well of liberals, that they empathize more with out groups and further out groups than they do with closer groups. And you see this with the complete lack of information. They've just dropped the narrative about Asheville.
Yeah, can I totally interrupt you on that?
Hurricane.
I just that rings a bell for me. So in evolutionary biology, there is this concept called the extended phenotype. Extended phenotype an example of that would be a bird, the nest. The nest is extended phenotype. Richard Dawkins, I think, coined this.
So what does that mean? Elaborate.
Yes. So it is an evolved activity, behavior that the critter does with its environment to create reproductive success, or odds of that. So beavers build dams, for example.
Squirrels bury nuts?
Yes, the dam making
That's survival,
behavior.
right?
Yes. So one could posit that the liberals' toxic empathy is the extended phenotype of these hyper masculine, low time preference individuals, because they benefit from it and they engage in
hyper masculine.
Yes.
No, so he's saying normal men, or our hypermasculine men in this case, benefit through the evolutionary strategy of this seeing. Like,
I'm talking about
he's not saying the leftists
male migrants whose actual quote unquote toxic masculinity behavior, where they don't take no for an answer, they take what they want from women in these host countries.
Invaders.
They invade. They do what they want.
Right.
Right. It's like
So it's almost like a mating instinct, is what you're saying.
Yes, but it's at the expense of the people who are
like literally everything.
Well, it's
That's
again. This is why there's an important principle I know Jack's familiar with called subsidiarity.
Yep.
You got to help those closest to you. That always has to be your primary focus. And it's good to help other people. But if you have taken on the responsibility of caring for other people, your wife, your children, your family, and you start helping strangers, that's all well and good until and unless helping strangers gets in the way of feeding your children. And then at that point, what you're doing is actually morally wrong. You have to pay attention to your children and help your children and your wife and your family first. And this toxic idea that there is some virtue in caring equally for people you have no relationship with as you do your own family when you're responsible for them is so pervasive that we have Tim Walz on national television bragging about the fact that he's so in touch with reality and so down to earth because his 90-year-old mother needs Social Security to feed herself. Imagine the blind spot of openly admitting that you are a deadbeat son on air. You're a wealthy politician. If I'm a wealthy politician, my mother's not living off of Social Security. My mother's not feeding herself on government assistance. It's disgusting. But to him, foregoing all of the status symbols and indicators of wealth, even though we see him on camera working with a very expensive classic car, he's got all these nice toys for himself because he presents himself as this knucklehead kind of guy who doesn't know that much about stock markets and doesn't know what an investment banker does and doesn't have investments. And his mother just happens to be living off of Social Security even though he has every opportunity to provide her with a decent standard of living. It's disgusting, and people vote for that.
I would also say lockdowns and the George Floyd riots were another way of accelerating these people's need to help, quote unquote, help other people outside of their communities.
And
sending them money to burn down cities. And I also saw people in cities near me in New York saying, we forgive you for shattering our windows of our small business that you just.
That is.
I just want to make one. If you are watching this and you're like a middle class or lower middle class person who doesn't have means and you have family and Social Security, I get it. But for a wealthy politician to brag about that, it's like, what's wrong with you? Sorry.
This is also one of the reasons that when so when Joshua and I put this book together and we wrote it like really fast, like in the period of a month, you'll hear when Kamala Harris talks, she'll say, oh, well, Trump's rhetoric is dangerous and Trump is dangerous and he's going to go after opponents. And I'm sitting there like, a Trump supporter was just murdered at a rally by an Act Blue donor. And that just happened a couple weeks ago on national television. I met his family. Joshua met the family briefly, they're like, no, we sat down.
They were not having a good day. They were not having a good day.
No, they weren't. But the point being, though, is that why is that? You notice it doesn't even enter into their mind. And I see our copy of Unhumans is here, that it really comes down to the fact that they don't view conservatives or Trump supporters as people. They don't view you as anyone who counts. Steve Bannon is in jail, and yet Kamala Harris says, we'll sit there and go, Donald Trump says he wants to lock up opponents. And it's like, you have his chief strategist in jail behind bars right now. Bannon's sitting there, sends me an email yesterday. He goes, my lawyers tell me I'm eligible under the First Step Act, and the DOJ won't even let me out.
Explain First Step.
So the First Step Act is something that was passed by Trump 2018. The idea was criminal justice reform, that basically if you're a first-time offender, a low-level offender, that you were in federal prison, that if you were, basically model prisoner, if you did vocational work or conducted education credits, set up a system for early release, basically, to try to help people get that sort of leg up or a quote unquote first step. And there's been some controversy around it, that it affected people who were actually were violent or were much more beyond what the marketing says. But that's what it is, basically. Steve Bannon, obviously a misdemeanor charge. He was obviously nonviolent, first-time offender, 70 years. And by the way, it also affects the elderly. And sorry, Steve, but I gotta say it, he is 70 years old. So he's obviously someone who would fit all of the brackets. And yet the Biden administration, the DOJ, refuses to enable or enact the First Step Act for him. So Kamala Harris, you are currently illegally keeping Steve Bannon in jail, but because you don't view him as a person, because you don't view Corey Compatore as a person, you view them as unhuman. You view them as someone who is less than a person, who is something more akin to an invasive species.
What if David
someone who's in your way?
What if David Dorn died at J6?
Yeah, if David Dorn died at J6. I mean, they say never answer hypotheticals, but they would have said they would have said that he shouldn't have been there.
Right.
They would have said that he shouldn't have been there, and he was a criminal, and all the rest.
They can't politicize your life or your death, and you're the enemy.
Right.
Well, listen, I mean, if somebody charges a police officer and tries to kill them, and then the officer has to defend themselves, and this person ends up dying in a clear-cut case of self-defense, they have every single excuse in the book for why that person couldn't help themselves, and they had to do what they do. When Ashley Babbitt gets shot, or anyone else who's conservative ends up on the other end of the law and is mistreated by police, when J6ers are locked up and the Geneva Convention is violated, these liberals who are so compassionate come out and dance around their body like Oompa Loompas, singing about how they could have done things differently, giving us the little morality tale on how they shouldn't have broken the law.
Liberals.
I got a question for you guys, because I need some religious expertise on this one.
I'm no expert, but
I'm
I
not
hope I can.
a little bit
Yeah,
of an
I'm not even a little bit of an expert.
More than me. I'm curious about miracles. Because do you remember when that painting of George Floyd exploded?
Lightning hit it.
I'm not kidding. It was a double-layer brick wall, and only the outer layer with George Floyd in the middle of the wall exploded on a partly cloudy day. A storm formed over this mural. Lightning struck exactly the middle of a brick wall, which seems really weird to me.
God doesn't like golden calves.
And George Floyd's picture exploded. And I'm not exaggerating.
God is a jealous God.
Is that a miracle? And a miracle doesn't, I don't think it needs to imply like a good, holy thing where lives are saved. It's like
a miraculous, a supernatural act.
A supernatural act, I mean, basically.
Well,
like,
so yeah.
obviously, this lightning strikes exist in nature and all that.
Okay, before you guys answer, so where I'm from in Ohio, everyone who's from Southwest Ohio will remember Touchdown Jesus. Remember Touchdown Jesus? Okay, so
what is it?
Touchdown Jesus.
Notre Dame?
There is, unfortunately, no.
What is that? I don't know.
In Southwest Ohio, there is a mega church just north of Cincinnati. I believe it's called Solid Rock Church. And for a number of years, more than 10 years ago, they had this massive honkin' Jesus statue, maybe 100 feet high or so, with the arms outraised, just over the top, sort of televangelist, prosperity gospel preacher, and people joked it was Touchdown Jesus. And it got struck by lightning and burned to the ground.
Wow.
Right. So I tend not to postulate when natural disasters occur with religious iconography.
Well, I'll just put it this way. Regardless of whether you want to call something a miracle or say this is a miracle, there's something you have to consider, and this is something we lose sight of. It's not like a miracle is when God acts in the world and the rest of the time he isn't. God is constantly sustaining everything that currently exists in existence at all times. So everything that happens is either part of his active or permissive will.
So we have this photo.
So it's all part of the plan regardless.
We have this photo, and
the only part of it is
well. So I mean, look, forgive me for my ignorance. I'm not a physicist. I have a cursory knowledge of basic physics when it comes to lightning and stuff, positive, negative charges, et cetera, friction in the atmosphere. Is it common, or at least common enough, that lightning strikes the middle of the side of a flat building? My assumption is that lightning strikes the highest point. And so when you're standing in a field and you are the highest point, the charge moves to you because the path of least resistance is the path that electricity travels through. So for me, I just look at this photo, and I read the story, and we covered it quite a bit, and I'm like, why would lightning strike up the side of the middle of an equal flat wall?
Yeah.
Blowing up only the picture of George Floyd and only the outer layer of brick.
And can you pull up the picture of the
original
icon that they created him? Because if I remember, it was very saintly looking.
Yeah,
no?
it had a crown on it. It had a crown.
They put him in a gold
halo,
casket.
right? Halo.
I believe that they were trying to. It looked like it was some kind of religious imagery made
They do
to
that.
mock
They have
Christianity.
Fauci candles they pray to.
It's humiliating. It's embarrassing for them. They think they're embarrassing us, but they're the ones who end up looking really, really bad as a result. But that said, if this is true and this is what happens, then we can actually create.
Take a look. I'll try and find a better one that put a crown on him.
They put a crown.
Yeah, he had a crown.
So, I mean,
a large image.
I don't know, but I do know that there was a miraculous act that we saw earlier this year.
Where he turned his head.
Oh, man.
At a field in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th, 2024 at 6:11 p.m. And Seamus, I think you'll appreciate right on in here on the front page, it says for Corey Compatore, and right under that we have Ephesians 6:11.
Amazing.
Put on, so Tim, Trump was shot at 6:11 p.m. And I remember watching the video over and over. And you can see up in the corner, because they have on live feed on the news, they always have, the time is usually there at whatever the local time is. And I don't know. We all watched the video a million times, I'm sure. But on one viewing, it struck me. I said, wait a minute, that says 6'11". And in my head, and I had this tweet that went super viral that said, I was like, wait a minute, Ephesians 6:11 is, of course, put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
That came to your mind right when you heard it was 6:11?
It did, actually, yeah.
Nice.
Ephesians 6 is just one of my favorite books of the entire Bible.
Good for you, man.
It's just incredibly written. It is, the Apostle Paul writing that, just fantastic. I mean, I was actually at the Bible study where I met Tanya Tay. One of the major focuses that we were in on was was Ephesians and what the entire epistle. But, Ephesians 6,
Wow,
you could spend
there it is.
Weeks.
6:11 Eastern.
Well,
6:11, right there.
Butler, PA, 6:11 p.m. Eastern.
This is one thing I mentioned after the assassination.
And by the way, just not just that it was 6:11, right? That's not the miracle, but just to finish the thought is that, I mean, Tim, you shoot, you're a gun guy. We're all gun guys, I think. Here is that's and Joshua, we've been there. Tim, you've been there now. That's not a hard shot.
It's not far away at all.
It's not far away. That's like a boot camp shot. And when you go there, it just seems smaller and like the whole thing just seems smaller.
I am not good. And when we go to the ranges and they give me a long gun, it is not hard to make the target.
No, especially with a dialed in EOTech, which by the way, and the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, went to his range, and we've got so we don't trust the federal government, so we've hired our own private investigators that are actually looking into him. And by the way, that's ongoing. So when people get the book, we are going to be releasing updates. So this is the first iteration of our own independent report.
Did he do target practice at the same place that the Homeland Security went to?
He did. And in fact, we've got in the book, not just that, we actually have the sign-in logs of his, no, we're not like doxing the other people who were there, but we've got the sign-in logs. He was there 43 times, including the day before he was there at the range. And so, we do dox some of the police officers.
That's crazy that Trump tilted his head a couple millimeters.
Just at the right moment.
And by the way, that 140 yards, that if you're a pretty good marksman with a handgun, you can make that shot. You can go look up YouTube. There are YouTubers who...
With a handgun?
Yeah, 100 yards.
I'd never make it.
Yeah, I mean... Well, I mean, it's at the higher
I'm not good.
At the higher end with a handgun. There are people. I've seen Navy SEALs who can make that shot, or shooting steel, something like that at 100 yards. Yeah, at the higher end with a handgun, you can definitely make.
Who's the T-Mask guy on Instagram? Do you know him?
No,
what's his? I don't know. He's got an account. You can Google search for him. But that dude is super good with a handgun. Watching those videos are incredible. I mean, Keanu Reeves is good with a handgun.
Yeah. And I'm sure any of those guys would be like, 100 yards, 140 yards. Yeah, like we could make that shot. So if you got a sighted in EOTech, if you're someone who goes to the gun range regularly, if you're someone who knows exactly what you're doing, and by the way, you've got a completely unobstructed view of your target, it's just not a hard shot.
He had his target in his sights perfectly. And then Donald Trump tilted his head.
Well, and so what I say in liberals to respond to this is if you want us to stop bringing God into politics, you have to stop asking him to do the Secret Service's job for them.
Exactly.
That's something that I didn't know until I was there, and they had reconstructed the stage exactly as it was that day for the second Butler rally, is the way that the stands are set up with the stage and where Crooks was, the stands make a V shape leaning in to where Trump was. So where Crooks was, it was as if he had like everything blocked off in the target right there in the middle. Now it's also interesting.
Well, have you heard of they call it the Pac-Man perimeter? Have you seen this?
Right. Yep. The one area
because there's one area where it kind of divots in. So it's like a circle all the way around the stage, except for the AGR building. So there's this one triangular area which directly bisects the AGR building where Crooks was, and which he utilized, and with the sloped roof, so no law enforcement or anyone else could get up there. Somehow he was able to shoot off a sloped roof, which we saw it. It's not that sloped.
Is it true that the counter snipers were there for the first time that day for Trump? That was reported on
every indication that I mean, not for when he was president, but for one of his post-presidential rallies. Every indication I've seen is that yes, this was the first time counter snipers were there.
Do you talk about Crooks's body disappearing?
Yes, we talk about all of it. We talk about all of it.
It's a very interesting story.
The body, and not just the body disappearing. And when I say disappear, it was taken by the FBI.
Yep.
the FBI then released it directly to the family, did not go back to the Butler coroner to allow him to finish his report. So they have like a preliminary tox screen and a preliminary autopsy for him, but they were not, they did sort of your basic workup, but they were not able to go and do anything further with him.
Cremated it.
So they cremated it. The family cremated the body. The coroner had said he would never be willing to do that. And what's even more potentially suspicious is that the FBI, for the first time in, as far as we know, in FBI history, cleaned the site of the roof. So everyone knows about FBI for, CSI and, crime scene investigation and all this, forensics and the tech and, Dexter and all this stuff. But you never hear about them cleaning the site. That's usually farmed out to some local. And typically, by the way, if you're God forbid, but if there's a crime like that, usually, law enforcement has nothing to do with the cleanup. That's you just they give you a card and they're like, hey, here's a guy in the area who cleans up biologics, and there you go. I've never in my entire life and almost a decade in the intel community, I've never heard of the FBI.
I don't want you to give away more stuff in your book, but I'm curious if you wrote about or looked into the story about the guy who was randomly on the rooftop taking pictures.
Man in the gray suit.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so the man in the gray suit, who I have identified through reporting, and Pennsylvania is a state. Interestingly enough, just the state that that I'm from, that I have really strong networks in. So that was an individual, and Senator Ron Johnson initially was the one who had reported this out. So the man in the gray suit was an ATF. And this is their story on the man in the gray suit. Their story is there was a man who was not on duty at the ATF, but he saw what was going on, that he was in the area close enough to get in, that he drove there on his own recognizance and his own initiative, decided to go to the rally, started taking pictures, and he wanted to send the pictures back to the FBI, or to the ATF rather, so that he could conduct facial recognition, even though Crooks's face was he was shot in the mouth and it came out the back of the head. Right. So I'm not sure if you would have been able to do that much. So that came out in the autopsy, and he then after Johnson found this all out, when they tried to reach out to the ATF to say why was this guy there, totally stonewalled him.
It was super weird. Wasn't he telling people like text me your images or text a certain number your images?
Right. And so he says that, and was interesting. So he said he was in the Pittsburgh office, but the number he gave was a Philadelphia area code 215, whereas Pittsburgh is 412. And people are saying, why is it a Philly number? It's at the Pittsburgh office. Like the story just didn't match up. Right. It didn't match up at all. And now it's just gone. Total ghost.
Totally.
So much doesn't match up about it. Now, one of the things that we call out in the book that I haven't seen elsewhere, it might have been mentioned elsewhere, but it's a sort of the dog that's not barking, that concept where a dog that usually barks just stops barking. Problem. What we notice, all the footage, both video and images, and also the accounts, eyewitnesses of Thomas Matthew Crooks that day, is he is acting calm, cool, collected, confident about what he is about to do. Now, this is a youngster who is, we understand, planning to kill the most famous man in the history of civilization.
I actually have something to tell you about this. So Tim, do you remember when we were at the event in Bucks County last week? And great speech. But was that your first political speech like that for a candidate? Yeah, that was cool to see. Yeah, and so I spoke with Noah Formica of Turning Point Action, who was there that day. And if you look, so there was that TikTok video that we found of Crooks walking by some of the stands. Well, as I was watching that video, I said, wait a minute, that's the Turning Point logo
we talked about
in the background. And so I'm like, I know that guy. So I call him up immediately. I said, Noah, did you talk to the killer? Did you actually talk to Thomas Matthew Crooks beforehand? And he said, I got to think about it. I don't know. Obviously he's, been through a traumatic, he was there at the shooting. Right. So, it was pretty traumatic for him. And he actually called in when we were on live stream that day. And so talking to him later at the rally that you and I were at, Tim, in Newtown in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, he said, look, I went back with my team and we were sort of discussing it. And we realized that we did talk to him. Wow. So he came up. So he said he came up to the table, and and I said, was he asking questions? Was he inquiring as to who you were? That were, probing anything? He said, no, it wasn't like that at all. And Joshua, it's like what you said. They said he just seemed arrogant and, kind of had his nose up in the air in a way. And
like he possessed asymmetric information.
Like he had some information that they didn't know what was coming. And they said he seemed really weird. And he said of all the people, and look, there's all sorts of types. There's also, I think there's a girl in like anime cosplay in the same video. That's seriously, on the same TikTok with Thomas Matthew Crooks. Not like talking to him, but you just see her in the background. And the things you see when watching a Trump rally in Western Pennsylvania. But they said they all noted him as his behavior was just off, that something was very off about him. And again, he had that aloof attitude. And of course, they're asking, hey, do you want to register to vote? Do you want to vote early? This is a big thing. They're just doing their job for Turning Point. And they said that he seemed like he was scoffing at us in a way, as if he had some, like you say, secret knowledge that, obviously we know what happened afterwards, but they all remembered him as being that. And when I showed them the footage, because that's something else where, there's all these images of Crooks as a kid, and the media always does this, by the way. They'll show images of someone as a kid that do not look like what they looked like on that day. So as he grew, he was 20 years old at this time. His bone density was much stronger. He was physically more imposing, and you can see hard jaw, hard features, but at the same time not particularly anxious or worried about anything, as if he knew that his plan would go off without a hitch.
Wow. And there's a description from June 22nd, Air Force veteran Bill Jenkins, that this is from day 2 of the chapter, or of the Bulletproof book. So one of the Keystone Shooting Center classmates, who is a class with him that particular day, June 22nd, he says, eventually I got into politics. This is the Air Force veteran Bill Jenkins describing about having a one-on-one conversation with Crooks. He wasn't saying anything. He remained quiet. So I was kind of, waiting to see what this kid would do, because he was getting a little tense there. And he never said a word. He just sat there, kind of smiled, looked, and didn't say anything. So I was surprised at that, not knowing what was going to happen in the future. But even then I was kind of like, how come this guy isn't saying anything? Yay or nay? So
was that the guy? He was at the gun. They were in a gun class together, and he was sort of peppering him with political questions. Talking about Trump, talking about Biden. It was, talking about Kamala. Actually, Kamala, keep in mind, wasn't switched out yet. And actually, one of the things that we argue for in the book and detail in quite depth are the 9 days between the failed assassination, which we say is a failed hit on Trump, and the pulling of Joe Biden as the nominee for president.
So what do you guys think is what really happened? Do you believe there was an official capacity behind it?
We lay out 3 scenarios. So the first scenario is the official story. We have an unstable young man of unclear motivation, totally impossible.
So that's the lone wolf.
Totally and completely. Yes. So we say that is the least likely of all the explanations. And then the second hypothesis, that there is an Iranian plot, and we say, well, this is more so maybe possibly what are in those emails and those group chats that he seems to have been participating in, those
particularly with the IED construction.
Yes. So was he talking to an agent or a representative or with individuals hired by Iran? Because there had been some attempts previously and since, it seems, to take out Trump by Iran. So maybe it's certainly, that's more likely than the official story.
But there's no definitive evidence.
That's right. Now, our official hypothesis, and I've got the page earmarked right here.
So the third is inside job.
That's right. We say the numerous United States Secret Service security failures at the rally seem to many Americans too severe and too numerous to be merely coincidental. Crook's presence was known to law enforcement approximately 90 minutes before the shooting.
He flew a drone over it.
Yeah, and if he had wanted to, if he had gone, full Azov battalion, just like, by the way, the second assassin was directly associated with the Azov battalion, which I was able to find I have the ability to, use facial recognition to scour the internet for someone whenever I see their face. Not all the time, but I have a way to do that.
Cerebro.
Kind of
just clear view stuff.
And so when, I'd rather not say. but because I don't want to give away different things. But when Ryan Wesley Roth, I was just looking for his social media, right? His social media profiles, and I was like, this is the picture. Let's look it up. First page is a propaganda video for the Azov Battalion.
Wow.
And he's right there, right in Maidan Square of Kiev. I'm like, just pulling out my Alex Jones was right jar.
Yeah.
With like, so the CIA trained assassination team from Ukraine is directly associated with this guy who had a Kalashnikov outside of Mar-a-Lago and West Palm Beach. Okay, so like I'm just calling up Alex, like, hey man, you're right again, brother.
And he had a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on his truck.
And the Biden-Harris bumper sticker. But thank God, by the way, that Thomas Matthew Crooks did not go Azov Battalion and strap one of those IEDs to that drone. Had he done that, and look, Tim, you saw the situation there, and imagine the drone wasn't there. Imagine the Overwatch wasn't there. The Connex easily would have taken Trump out if he had used a kamikaze drone, and he had the ability to do so. He decided not to. Maybe he didn't. He wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. He was concerned with the proficiency of the drone, something like that. I don't know.
It could not detonate,
but it would have worked. It easily would have worked. And so we conducted a little bit of a social experiment, and this was Joshua's idea. So we took we identified 12 independent failures, security failures that day, or failures, or potentially successes.
That's like winning the lottery twice. I
see what it is. So, and we said, what are the odds? It's funny you say that, because we said, what are the odds? And we've got the full probability equation here. I know we love math here on Timcast. Okay, what are the odds of all of those independent security failures happening on the same day that, as we say, a trained marksman shows up with intent to kill?
And wait, did you add to that the day before the FBI informed the Secret Service that there was an assassination plot against Donald Trump?
That's in here. Yes,
I think that is in here.
Add it to the equation.
Yeah, there are a dozen, but we picked the top 12, and the idea is that this is a conservative estimate, and the idea is we picked 12 that if only one of them had not occurred, the security failure had not occurred, Crooks would not have been 140 yards away from Trump to be able to take.
So what are the
shots.
odds? Like 1 in a trillion?
Oh boy.
Close.
Probability of all 12 security failures taking place independently from one another, yet simultaneously, together with the presence of a capable marksman with intent to kill, is 1 times 10 minus 27th, or 1 in a septillion, 1 followed by 27 zeros. Let us say that again. The odds of all 12 failures happening on the same day as an armed man with malicious intent happening upon the situation without prior knowledge, and assuming these events are independent, are at minimum 1 in 1 septillion, and that is being extremely conservative.
So it's like
I say the fact that we learned about this was his name, Merchant, the Pakistani guy.
Merchant. Well, yeah,
Asif Merchant or whatever.
Asif Merchant.
The fact that he got arrested the day before, the FBI said they informed Secret Service of a plot to kill Donald Trump, and the Secret Service replied that they would be increasing security. Triple it.
And they refused. So that's
triple those odds.
That's the same as flipping a coin and coming up heads 93 times in a row. And so, but then, we took this a step further, and Joshua did this. And I still remember the night that you texted me.
I was like, bro.
So we
like 5 times in a row.
So Tim, we took all this and we put it into GPT-4 Omni. And we were like, okay, what does, and that's like the latest iteration, OpenAI, whatever proprietary thing. So like, what does AI say? Not us, right? What does the computer say? So I'll credit to you, Joshua, because this was your idea.
This suggests the 1 in 1 septillion odds. This suggests that the occurrence of all these failures in the presence of the shooter is extraordinarily unlikely by chance alone, raising serious questions about whether these events were truly random.
That's the answer from GPT-4 Omni.
I appreciate the math and asking the AI, but unfortunately, even a simple, rational human would be like, there's no way that the guy flew a drone, walked past security, there were text messages about him sneaking in, the Secret Service had counter snipers, we're supposed to have people on the roof. Hour and a half, 27 minutes,
full
10
text
minutes.
messages, which we have printed out that everyone can see, jumping from roof to roof.
You take one of these. You say, did you know that the cops said, hey, this guy snuck in? And they're like, what? Why didn't they do anything about it? Hey, I don't know. Sounds weird, doesn't it?
Yep.
The one for me that really sticks with me is the conduct of the ESNU sniper, Officer Greg Nickel. And look, he claims that it was a mistake, But at around 6:04 p.m., this is the guy. So Tim, and then it was blocked off when we were there. But the AGR building that Crooks utilized is actually just a one-story building, and where the snipers were was a two-story building behind that. So they're in the second story. They're in the window. They've got the sniper rifle in the window overlooking exactly where Thomas Matthew Crooks was. At 6:04 p.m., remember, we've established 6:11 p.m. is when the shots took place. At 6:04 p.m., Nickel drops coverage, leaves the Overwatch position, and says, "Oh, I heard there's this suspicious guy. I'm going to go help look for him." When we know there's already foot patrol that are there supposed to be doing that job, he's a sniper.
Yeah, that's impossible.
His position. He leaves his duty station.
He leaves his position, which is explicitly for when a suspicious person is seen in the area, for him to be watching over with his weapon. That's impossible.
And then says
that's him saying
he forgot his key card and wasn't able to get back in.
Yeah, there's no way.
Well, we all make mistakes. Wow. Right? It's insane. I mean, the fact that, firstly...
And then, oh, by the way, 2 months later, they try to kill him again.
Yeah, well, exactly. So the idea that
because of his violent rhetoric, right? Words are violence.
The ball here, the idea that everyone who dropped the ball here hasn't been fired tells you something.
Well, they started retiring, right? They started retiring.
A lot of the higher ups at Secret Service have been retiring. Kimberly Cheadle, who was the director, she was out almost immediately. But Ronald Rowe, who was her operations chief, is now the acting director of the Secret Service.
Do we know who was in command that day?
So the New York Times has the latest piece on this, and this was referring back to the report that Congress has put out, their first iteration. And I don't have the unredacted version of that. I'm in the process of getting it. So they say there was no one official site lead, but the person who was the highest positional authority that day was a female agent who only had 4 years on the job. So 4 years out of FLETC. FLETC is the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center down in Brunswick, Georgia, where Secret Service and NCIS and a bunch of different 1811 special agents go through. That 4 years on the job, that's it, was put in charge of an open air outdoor rally with a former president who is, probably the #1 target of any assassin in the entire world right now. The day after, Tim, as you mentioned, the FBI had just arrested someone who was involved with the Iranian plot to kill him. And, oh, by the way, the drone tech that they had for the day was a guy who had only taken an online course in drones and spent, I kid you not, several hours on the phone with the 1-800 number tech support to try to figure out why his Secret Service drone wasn't working.
So he was as qualified as Matt Walsh is to be a DEI instructor.
Precisely.
I'm glad he's doing our security.
Grassy knoll on steroids.
But less paid.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Less paid.
Unsexy.
Right, and then after that hit fails, and we do view this as a failed hit, the second hit takes place, and there's something very interesting, which, by the way, this is in the news today because Ryan Wesley Routh, I don't know if you've seen, has, so he's drawn Eileen Cannon, who is the Trump appointee down there in the Southern District of Florida. She was the same one who was on the classified documents case. His lawyers now, which we can't seem to figure out exactly how he's paying for these lawyers, the same way we can't figure out how he paid for his travel to Kiev, Ukraine, and Istanbul, Turkey, and Taipei, Taiwan, and all of these trips that he's taken, but he claims he has no money to his name whatsoever. They are asking for her to recuse herself from the case because essentially they're saying she has a conflict of interest because she was appointed by the person who was targeted as the victim of the assassination plot. She was appointed by Trump, and Trump would have been the victim of the crime that he is being charged for. And so they're trying to get her to pull herself because they want a Tanya Chutkin type or Juan Rashan type that they can get in there. So this guy, Ryan Wesley Routh, again, as I've stated, uses that training that he clearly received while he was in Ukraine. From my reporting that he was not involved because of his age. He was in his 60s. He's still in his 60s. That he did not go onto the battlefield himself, but he received some familiarization training. And Tim, I don't know if you've seen the hide site that he constructed. So it wasn't just he was sitting there with his rifle, but he actually had
2 plates of armor, right?
2 plates of armor in backpacks that he had put up on the fence as essentially a fairly a fairly rudimentary, although effective, form of creating a sniper's nest for himself. Or I talked to Eric Prince about this, and he calls it a hide site. That if he just hadn't stuck the muzzle of his Kalashnikov outside the fence.
I got to pause. People keep getting mad because it was an SKS.
SKS is a Kalashnikov style rifle. And so it's a knockoff. It's an AK knockoff. And so if he just hadn't stuck the muzzle outside, that he never would have been found. And Donald Trump, remember, was only one course, or one hole away. Yeah. So a couple hundred yards, almost within range. Like not quite within range, but very, very close to being within range. And I haven't been able to confirm this yet. But remember, the initial story that came out that day was that shots were fired on the range. Now, it turns out that he did not fire with the SKS, but there was a Secret Service agent who identified him and then opened fire. So just walk through this with me. Secret Service agent didn't hit him. Why didn't he hit him? He's got body armor up there. So that means this was effective TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures that he learned from units associated with the Azov Battalion who had received training from the American CIA to conduct assassinations within Russia. And the New York Times has put this out, by the way, that, they were totally going rogue when they did that. The CIA would never be involved in assassinations and proxy wars. And he was even able to effectively stop fire from a trained Secret Service agent who was shooting at him.
There's a revolt right now. They're saying SKS is older than Kalashnikov.
Yeah.
That is not a Kalashnikov receiver. Jack is wrong.
Yeah, I believe SKS is older, right? Didn't they make that first before the AK?
They said, don't you dare besmirch the good name of the Kalashnikov.
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of the Kalashnikov, and I'm not trying to besmirch it in any way. I think
well, they're not serious.
No, I literally am a huge fan of the Kalashnikov. I mean, that is like, if you want, so an AR-15, for as great as they are and as versatile as they are, obviously the most adaptable rifle out there. They're just when you're using them in the field, they're prone to all sorts of malfunctions. Kyle Rittenhouse even had to tap rec bang one time during his altercation when in self-defense he needed to defend himself. But the AK, an AK just Kalashnikov just runs.
It runs.
We're gonna go
the prom queen versus the dirt bike chick.
What is I haven't seen that. I haven't seen
That's
that.
how I've heard it described.
We got to get super chats in there. So smash the like button, subscribe to the show, share it with everyone you know. Leave us a good review if you're listening on the audio podcast. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Here we go.
Tim, real, if I could just put a pin on the SKS thing though, the bigger question here is not whether or not it was. We know it was an SKS, right? The question is, how does a guy who's a 20-year felon get his hands on one of them when he just came from the battlefield in Ukraine that was unregistered and had the serial number shaved off? That's the real question.
All right, here we go. Let's grab this one for Ryan Jacobs. Says, can you give a shout out for my daughter Isabella? She just turned 3 today. Happy birthday, Isabella.
Oh, happy birthday.
Shout out to having families.
Happy birthday.
Tim Jake says, congrats to Elon and SpaceX on the successful launch of the next 20 Starlink satellites at 7:31 Eastern Time. It was the 9th flight of that first stage rocket. Talk about getting your money's worth. Elon Musk caught a 23-story building. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. That SpaceX is doing the most important work, in my opinion, right now for humanity. Taking us to the stars. If we colonize any other celestial body, whatever it may be, it is exponentially increasing the likelihood of human survival. We get hit by an asteroid right now. We're gone. Just we're on Mars. Well, we're not going to be too well off if Earth gets wiped out because Mars needs supplies, but humans will survive. So I'm a big fan of what Elon is working on here. Let's grab some more. Frey Kane says, book series Bobby Pendragon covers Tim's AI Matrix futures in books, and its consequences on book 4 and consequences in book 8. Their roach gel is called Trine. I love it when there was a news article about 2 celebrities who got together over what they said was a Weird AI conspiracy, but they capitalized AI, so it said a Weird Al conspiracy. And everybody was like, I want to know what that conspiracy is. It sounds fun.
Have you heard his Party in the CIA?
Oh, yeah.
Song?
I have heard that.
That's hilarious.
All right, where are we at? Let's grab some more. Atlantis Lion says, hey, Tim, is there a plan to re-upload the Culture War episode that were on the Tenant Media channel? There are a few that my mom wanted to see. Love you all. I believe they're all still So they're all on iTunes and Spotify. Nothing is gone. Tenet disappeared. So, but the important thing for people to understand is that we had a non-exclusive license. This means, like, if Timcast IRL appeared on someone else's Twitter because they bought a license, we own the show, we host the show. Sometimes people repost it. So Tenet appeared on that channel. That channel is now gone, but the podcast still exists everywhere. And we had a great episode today with the Cartier family. I don't know if you guys saw that one. That was fun. Young black men who were reacting to music and everything, and then they started. Someone told them to react to Thomas Sowell, and then they went, "Whoa!" And now they're Trump supporters, and they were like, they learned a lot, changed their worldview.
Thomas Sowell's a national treasure.
He's a genius.
Yeah, incredible. Just incredible.
And these guys are smart dudes. They're doing the research, they're figuring things out, and they were explaining, they're college athletes. They had a BLM poster when they were doing these videos, and then people started to ask them questions. They started to answer the questions and look into them. But I said to him, I was like, you guys are like track and field stars. Like, you're in college, you're running. I'm like, I have to imagine you're disciplined. You wake up every day, you got to eat right, you can't screw around, you can't drink. I'm like, that discipline and hard work ethic will take anybody towards whatever the right is today. Because it means you're going to do the work, you're going to be paying attention, you're going to do what's best for you, and you're not going to accept that people who don't want to work get your money and things like that. I think that's where they, ultimately end up where they are. Let's grab some more. Alahad says, "Hi, Tim. I got a financial idea. Bet all your money on Kamala. If she wins, you win. If she loses, you still win. Profit." Haha. Silver is like an all-time, or like a decade high right now. I think it's like $33. Is that what was going on? I saw a tweet about it. Yeah, that's wild. Gold is at like 2,700, some ridiculous thing. And now Max Kaiser is saying that Bitcoin's probably going to skyrocket afterwards. I don't got any advice for you guys. I'm just saying that's what's in the news.
Bitcoin's super high right now.
It's like 70, dude. It's like
What?
68.
Yeah, it's like 60.
I had no
thought it was
idea.
67 the other day. Yeah.
Wow.
For real?
Yeah.
I do not. I got to track this stuff. What is going on over here?
I happened to check the other
Oh,
day.
yeah, that's 65.
From
It says 68 on Google. So,
Orange man, orange coin. Orange man, orange coin.
Well, look, dude, I think the day before the election, all of these things are going to go through the roof because people are worried about Kamala winning. But I don't know. We'll see if Trump wins.
But they're also worried about unrest.
Exactly. Yep. Let's go. Sea Cowboy says the drones flying over Norfolk are not new. This has been an issue since at least December. A Chinese student was also arrested for flying a drone over Newport News shipyards a couple months ago. Ooh, man. I briefly lived over there a couple months.
I lived in Virginia Beach for a while when I was stationed training.
Right. Where were you stationed at in Virginia Beach?
Damn it.
Oh, okay, cool. Because my brother was at Eustis.
Okay.
Yeah, so I lived briefly down there. Or I visited him for a few months. We hung out. It was fun.
Nice.
Cool stuff. Hampton Roads, huh?
Love the Hampton Roads.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Matthew Peterson says, "Hey, Tim and crew. First time ever messaging. Could you give a shout out for my younger brother, Adam? Our parents could use some help. Give, send, go. Adam's Medical. Can't get the URL to work. Shout out, Adam. Best of luck to you guys. I hope everything is okay." D-Claw says, Kane and The Undertaker did a vid with Trump saying to vote for Trump and not Kamala. Dude, I love it.
So amazing. Yeah, Glenn Jacobs, Kane, he's a mayor in East Tennessee, and actually his entire area was his area, Knox County, was fairly unaffected by the floods, but because he was like the last county before the flood zones, that he became sort of a jump off point, and he was doing a ton of humanitarian work and helping to raise money and just using his, just fame and celebrity to be able to, become a huge voice for that area.
Luciano says, "Hey, Tim, yesterday you suggested that magic is superior to Yu-Gi-Oh! How dare you? Because of this transgression, I have unsubscribed from Freedom Tunes."
Wait, what?
to the Shadow Realm with you, Spoon Man.
Why would you do that?
Excellent work.
I disavow,
yes,
first
excellent
of all,
work.
I disavow Tim's statement
Are you saying you
along
like
with
Yu-Gi-Oh?
everything. I didn't say.
You'll lose way more subs if you say yes.
I was raised in a middle class family. We cared a lot about our lawns.
Ejection seat.
Get me out of here.
All right. What do we got? We'll grab some more. Garhan says, bold-faced lie about Kamala not having the energy of a rabbit. Kamala has the energy of a Playboy bunny, the things she did for her. Okay, all right. No. Family friendly.
No.
All right. Stoned Mason says, "Hey, Tim and company and Seamus, you gentlemen are inspiring. I know I may sound crazy, but have you heard of JFK Jr.? JFK Jr. George Magazine What if his return is the October surprise? The MSM would break. What is that?
They're expecting JFK Jr. to
George
return.
Woods.
That's a
I
theory.
don't know what that magazine
George
is.
Magazine was his magazine. They said Interview Magazine. Yeah. It was George. He had his own magazine.
Well, I know Trump was actually obviously friends with, JFK Jr., obviously before he died in the plane crash when Hillary Clinton wanted to run in the same
Interesting you put those things
race
together.
that he was in at the same time that he was.
But that's just historical timeline. I mean, he's not insinuating anything.
timeline.
Well, he's just saying that together.
But what's interesting though is, I had come up with this idea for RFK Jr. that, people are sort of looking for, what's going to be his, obviously main role in a Trump administration. And of course, Make America Healthy Again is his big push. But I had come up with this idea of saying, well, why not put all of the assassination records on to a task force and creating a task force on assassination. So obviously something now that President Trump and RFK Jr. have both experienced, one directly and one indirectly through his father and uncle. And Trump announced the very next day at the rally in Phoenix that he would be appointing RFK Jr. to lead the task force on presidential assassinations and giving him declassification authority on, by the way, his father, his uncle, and on Butler, Pennsylvania.
Dude,
that is amazing.
There's something else I want to point out about the assassination attempts here. Do you guys remember how right after the assassination attempt against Donald Trump happened, you started seeing these articles about how the CIA thwarted a secret assassination attempt on Obama that the KKK was plotting?
What? I didn't see that.
Yeah, they were publishing these stories like, you think your candidate was dangerous and almost got assassinated. It was almost like when you have a spoiled little kid you need to give a cupcake to on someone else's birthday because they can't stand someone else being the center of attention. But it was a real thing. They were trying to push this narrative right after the assassination attempt that, an assassination attempt on Obama had been thwarted years ago and the KKK was planning on taking him out.
Those are the headlines after Trump falls on stage at security.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
Trump briefly stopped speech after loud noise.
Loud pops.
seeds.
Yeah, loud pops.
Loud pops.
GOP seethes.
Yeah, is that what
Do you remember that one? I think
GOP seethes.
Yeah, no,
Look at what happened with the Ryan Ruth story. Marjorie Taylor Greene is immediately like, there's shots being fired at Trump's green. This may be an assassination, and all these pundits were like, no, it's not. Stop. It's not an assassination.
CNN tried to say that it was like a gang thing that happened off site, and they said, hey, there's some areas, and it's true, there's some areas of West Palm Beach, not too far from Mar-a-Lago, that are known for gang activity. I don't know if it's Tren de Aragua or whatever, but they were trying to say that this was a couple of like gangbangers shooting at each other. When no, it was the shooter, in fact, was a Secret Service agent shooting at an assassin who we later found out had been lying in the bushes for 12 hours waiting for President Trump to arrive.
All right, Wyatt Kaltenberg says, up to World War II, kids were educated by their families, communities, and religion. After World War II, the government convinced parents to put their kids in secular government schools, allowed secular TV to babysit them. Hence, boomers are non-religious. And this is, fortunately for the liberal economic order, coinciding at the exact same time when they were trying to create the liberal economic order.
Speaking of, in the 1950s, several of the large corporations that had been manufacturing goods for the war effort, they had the manufacturing capability to continue that output, but no wars for that. And then they realized we have an oversupply and under demand of all of the goods, household goods and consumables that we can sell, but people don't need them. They literally don't need them. What do? They hired professional hypnotists.
What?
To develop marketing campaigns to instill via mass formation hypnosis an urge, a drive, a desire, a belief, an identity to become a consumer.
Is this where Bernays comes in?
It's up in the 1950s.
No, Bernays was way earlier than that.
Earlier?
Yes, he was earlier than that. He figured out that
bacon a thing.
And also the freedom torches, like make women smoke, because previously that had not been socially
Bernays
acceptable.
was the nephew of Freud.
Yep, that's right. Bacon and orange juice, I think, were some of his claims to fame.
Right.
Bacon is a breakfast food now because of him, and orange juice did not exist. Orange juice is not good for you. Orange juice is a hyper concentration of sugars. An orange is good for you. And so what happened was there was the farming season had an oversupply, and the farmers are like, what are we gonna do with this extra stock? It's gonna drive the prices down. And so he was like, orange juice. We make a new product. We say, if an orange is healthy, orange juice is 5 oranges in 1 glass. And so then they started selling oranges and orange juice. So they had a new product that could go on the shelves for longer and different,
The CIA also hired hypnotists.
Correct.
For psychomagicians during MK Ultra training.
Yes.
So they love doing that.
It's insane the stuff that we know about MK Ultra now too, which is just out there. It's public record.
Yeah.
People don't talk about it as much as they should.
Because they've been MK Ultra.
The first season of Stranger Things, if people actually sit and watch it, is directly about, people know about how it's about the Montauk Project, but it is directly referencing MK Ultra. And the backstory to 11 is that her mother was in the MK Ultra experiments while she was pregnant, and so this supposedly is the reason that 11 has her power. But they've totally just
show's gotten weird.
Right past that.
It has gotten weird, and I didn't watch. I think I watched maybe the first 3 seasons, but I remember there was one episode in the 3rd season that got really based because it was just shocking for a popular Netflix show to say this, but they basically trashed communism. Do you remember the episode where the guy insists the carnival is rigged because it's capitalist, and then he just gets proven wrong? He's like, I guess I learned a lesson today. Communism's bad. I was like, I'm shocked.
Yeah, that whole season is like the Russian communists have infiltrated the town, etc.
I gotta throw some shade to the right, man. We talked about this earlier with the Cartier family. I was like, the right complained a whole lot, and the anti-woke, not necessarily right-wingers, complained a whole lot about the movies they didn't like, but y'all need to, Captain America, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd are really strong pro-America messages. The 3rd, it drifts a little bit away from it, but the 1st one definitely does. And there was a show on Netflix called The Order. Did you ever see this one?
No, what's that?
It got 2 seasons. It got canceled, and it takes place. It's what is it, like witches and werewolves or something?
No, that was a video game, wasn't it?
The Order?
1866. That was a video.
That's a
game.
different one.
Oh, okay. It was also about witches and werewolves.
I think the show was called The Order. Anyway, the bad guy was a Marxist professor.
Really?
The bad guy was literally a communist, Marxist, not exaggeration, and he wanted the power for himself. And so the witches and werewolves are like, we got to stop this guy, super woke. And the right doesn't rally around shows that have this positive message. They didn't know it existed. Netflix canceled it because nobody watched it. Netflix literally had a show that was like, communism is bad and communist professors at universities are bad people who want to steal power. And it was just like, no, we don't care. We're not going to watch that.
They all canceled after cuties.
Speaking of evil, I mean, that's also one of the reasons I never got Netflix again. But speaking of evil Marxist professors, did you guys see that Robert Reich got really upset when Trump tweeted out the St. Michael prayer?
Yes.
Part of what's so funny about that is Leo the 13th wrote that prayer to frighten demons. And Robert Reich, a Marxist professor, read it and went, this is terrifying.
I think he might actually be, in terms of demons, I think he would be considered an imp. Anyone's seen I don't know if you have a photo of Robert Reich.
I got asked about that, and someone asked me about that, like, does that concern you when Trump tweets those things? And I was like, what? And they were like, well, isn't it like a scary thing? And I was like, hold on, try that again. Like, I'm confused. Trump posted a prayer. He's a Christian guy. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to think. Am I supposed to be mad about that? Christians in this country exist. What am I supposed to say to that?
Yeah.
Why are you acting like you're mad?
Because what they're mad about is the fact that Christians are being told that they don't have to be afraid to be public about their Christian beliefs.
Well, something
that terrifies them.
Something that we've identified, and actually one of the reasons we didn't mention it, but we didn't use the fight photo for the cover of this, but we used the trumpet prayer photo.
Yeah,
and I think that this one speaks to me because this is the moment just before that moment. You've seen Trump with his fist in the air before. We've all seen that. Probably not as striking as that image, but we've seen it. But what have you never seen before? Trump publicly on his knees at prayer, showing piety and showing something that I don't think we've ever seen from him before, but humility.
That's crazy, right?
That's so true.
And so God calls you, God calls men to humble themselves. And in this instance, if you take the miraculous, and look, as a Catholic, it's just what I believe, that Trump was humbled in a sense, and brought to that moment of literally being kissed on the ear by death itself.
He was humbled.
And I don't know how you could not be after something like that.
But in that moment, he understood what had happened and understood that his life had been saved by God. And which he said, by the way, he said it was God alone. He put that out. And then it gave him the ability to stand up, as he didn't even know if the shooters were gone when he stood up. He didn't even know if there was still a threat.
The Trumps.
And anyway, just to finish thought, since then, you've seen this really public invocation of Christianity by Trump.
The Trumps are just good people. They're so nice. It's crazy to me. Let me give you an example of this, right? What is crazy? Casey Neistat endorsing Hillary Clinton, attacking the Trump family, but then later saying like he knows them personally and they're all really nice people. I'm just like, what? It's
wild.
Look, I'm not trying to drag the guy or anything, but it's just when I go to the Trump businesses and I ask his employees, they all love the guy. Everybody who meets him says they love the guy. Trump is really good at this. When he meets you, he compliments you right away. He genuinely, he'll just be really nice. He'll say something really nice about you. And it's just so strange to me to see how the media presents this image that doesn't exist.
Well, and this is a point that I wanted to make about humility. Obviously, Trump is braggadocious, and part of his brand is that he's a bit egotistical. But I think he's significantly more humble than people give him credit for because our culture has a very distorted vision of what humility means. Humility is essentially just knowing your place and taking it. I think Trump, a billionaire who's open about the fact that he's a billionaire, is way more humble than any of these rich politicians who pretend that they're working class or poor. It's ridiculous. Dude, when you see a billionaire wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants, that's not a humble person. That's someone who's trying to be something they're not.
So, real quick, you're saying humble is knowing your place.
Yeah, and taking it.
And Donald Trump literally translates to herald of the ruler of the world.
Oh, well, there it is.
I'm not kidding. Did you know that?
We've talked about that before.
Donald means world ruler, and Trump is the announcement, is the fanfare. His name literally means world rulers.
Where do you get the word trumpet from?
Right. And so then the conspiracy theory is, but does that mean that Donald Trump is the world ruler? Or does that mean he is the herald of the world ruler, Baron?
Baron.
Which literally means Baron. You know, I don't know, what's the earliest year Baron can run for office?
So he's 18
17
now.
years now,
35, so yeah, 17 years from now.
I gotta say, doing to his dad, he's going to be furious.
Here's the arc. He's growing up, literally growing up, surrounded in the deepest trenches of politics and dirty politics and the deep state, seeing what his dad is going through. He's going to be one of the most political, and I hear this now that he's super intelligent. He knows all about what's going on politically. He listens to all these podcasts. He pays deep attention, and that he doesn't want to get into the political arena until he's a bit older or whatever.
Smart kid.
But I feel like in terms of what someone may know about how the world works in politics, let me phrase it this way. When professional sports first start, the pros are not that good. If we look back to like the olden days of name a sport, you're like, look at the records that are being broken today. It's because a kid was born and raised to be that professional.
Yeah.
Donald Trump wasn't born and raised to be a president.
No.
He was a successful business leader, and then he took the roll up. But Barron is being born and bred and raised in this political environment with real insights. Maybe the reality is that when he's older, he becomes a powerful.
You also have
he's Octavian.
You have to take into account all the time traveling Baron does.
That's true.
And all the information he's amassed.
That's right.
over all this time.
All right, everybody,
gotta pray for that kid.
Smash the like button, subscribe, share the show with everyone you know. Leave us a good review if you're listening on Apple or other podcast platforms. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Become a member at Timcast.com to support our work. Josh and Jack, do you want to shout anything out? I think you might.
Order Bulletproof. Pre-order comes out October 22nd, and it is the first and only totally complete and curated, as of this present moment, report on the attempted assassinations of Donald J. Trump and why they failed.
And I'll just add, and since we just mentioned how nice the Trump family is, you'll see the subtitle here. It says "Forward by Donald Trump Jr." And the minute that I asked him, would you write the forward to this, he said immediately, yes, just no problem, of course.
That's why I was saying it's wild to, like, we've had Trump Jr. on a couple times, I think, and he's just like, he's a cool dude. He's really nice.
Yeah.
And then you turn the TV on, and it's like they have a character of a vampire screaming, and I'm like, what is this? This is so weird.
It's like what I was saying. They can't do impressions of the Trumps because they don't know who they are.
Yeah. Anyway, Seamus, you want to shout?
Hey, my name's Seamus Coughlin. I make cartoons at Freedom Tunes. You just saw, I believe, my magnum opus. I believe you saw my magnum opus today here on the channel. But if you want to see more, you want to see what we cook up next, go over to Freedom Tunes. We have released 3 cartoons this week. Anyone in animation will tell you that is a massive achievement. We're able to do that because of our viewers, our supporters, and our subscribers. So go over there, subscribe, get us to 1 million. I love talking about this stuff, and I love political topics, but as conservatives, we got to build culture. We have to make content that's fun and people enjoy watching. So please go over there, subscribe, and if you want to help us make more, become a member at freedomtunes.com because no one else is doing what we're doing right now, and we're able to keep really good artists employed working on these awesome cartoons.
Sweet. And you can find me online at Shane Cashman, and the show is Inverted World Live every Sunday, 6 p.m. This week, we're going to talk about breakaway civilizations, secret military tech, and free energy. We'll see you there.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We're back, of course, throughout the weekend with segments, and you can subscribe to youtube.com/TimcastNews. I will have the show up tomorrow, and you can check out those clips. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all there.